I spent 3 months hand-carving my wife a jewelry box for our anniversary. She smiled and thanked me while secretly writing in her journal that my working-class trinkets weren't enough. Those same hands that she despised had built nuclear submarines and held stock certificates worth billions she'd do anything to steal. The night my wife didn't come home from her hospital shift, I already knew where she was. What I didn't know was that she and her lover had just made a deal with dangerous people, a deal that would require my father's life insurance money to complete. The only problem? They needed him gone first. Before we begin, let me know where you're tuning in from down in the comments. And if you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next tale. Chapter 1. The smell of hot metal and sweat clung to me like a second skin as I pulled into our driveway that June evening in 2017. My name's Henry Thompson, and for 15 years, I'd been coming home to this same weathered colonial on Warwick Boulevard, carrying the pride of honest work in my bones and the dust of Newport News shipbuilding in my lungs. Through the kitchen window, I could see Evelyn moving around, her auburn hair catching the last rays of sunlight. My heart still did that stupid little skip it had been doing since the day we met 18 years ago at a friend's barbecue. She'd been fresh out of nursing school then, all bright eyes and bigger dreams, and I'd been the lucky welder who somehow convinced her to dance with me. "Daddy's home!" Genesis, our 14-year-old, hollered from the porch where she was sprawled with a book. Her dark hair, my hair fell across her face as she jumped up to help me with my lunch pail. "How was the yard today?" she asked, genuinely interested in a way that made my chest swell. Not many teenagers gave a damn about their old man's work. "We started laying the keel for the new submarine," I told her, ruffling her hair. "The USS Montana. She's gonna be something special." Skylar emerged from the garage, grease smudged on her cheek, holding a wrench. At 16, she had her mother's delicate features, but my stubbornness. "Dad, can you help me with the Camry later? I think I fixed the alternator, but I want you to check." "Course, sweetheart. After dinner." This was my life. This was everything I'd ever wanted: a family that loved each other, daughters who still talked to their old man, and work that mattered. Every weld I laid, every beam I secured was part of something bigger. Those ships protected our country. That meant something to me, even if Evelyn didn't always see it that way. Inside, the house smelled like pot roast and rosemary. Evelyn stood at the stove, still in her scrubs from the hospital. The fabric hung loose on her frame. She'd been losing weight lately, said it was from all the running around at work. When I wrapped my arms around her from behind, she stiffened for just a second before relaxing. "You smell like the shipyard," she said. Not quite a complaint, but not affectionate either. "I smell like honest work," I countered, kissing her neck. "How was the hospital?" "Oh, you know, saving lives, changing bedpans, the glamorous life of a nurse." There was that edge in her voice, sharp as a fresh welding rod. "Dr. Morrison drove in with a new Tesla today, Model S. The nurses were all talking about it." I felt her shoulders tense under my hands. "That's nice for him." "Must be nice," she continued, stirring the pot with unnecessary force. "To have that kind of money, to not have to worry about every little expense." "We do okay, Ev. We've got everything we need." She turned in my arms, and for a moment, I saw something flash in her green eyes. Disappointment. Contempt. It was gone before I could name it. "Do we, Henry? Do we really?" The truth was, we had more than she could possibly imagine. In my grandfather's old desk in the basement, the one Evelyn thought was just sentimental junk, sat documents that would make her head spin. 40% of Newport News shipbuilding. $3 billion, give or take, depending on the market. Grandpa Joe had been one of the original investors back when the company restructured in the 60s. He'd lived like a church mouse and died the same way, leaving everything to me with one piece of advice. Boy, money changes people. You want to know who someone really is? Don't let them know what you've got. I'd honored that advice for our entire marriage. Every morning I put on my work boots and headed to the yard, just another welder among hundreds. My coworkers didn't know. My friends didn't know. Hell, even my parents only knew I'd inherited a little something from Grandpa Joe. Why? Because I needed to know I was loved for me, Henry Thompson, the man who could fix anything with his hands, who sang off-key in the shower, who still got choked up at our daughter's school plays. Not for a bank account I'd done nothing to earn. We're rich in what matters, I told Evelyn, meaning it. We've got each other, the girls are healthy and smart, we've got a roof over our heads. A roof that leaks when it rains, she interrupted. In a house that hasn't been updated since the Reagan administration, while doctors' wives are vacationing in Cabo and getting their kitchens remodeled with marble countertops. Is that what this is about? Keeping up with the doctors' wives? She pulled away from me. Forget it, Henry. You wouldn't understand. You're content with this. She gestured around our kitchen with its dated cabinets and linoleum floor that had seen better days. The thing was, I could have written a check right then to gut the whole house and rebuild it into a mansion. Could have bought her a Tesla. Hell, could have bought her the whole dealership. But then what? Would she love me more? Or would she just love what I could buy her? Dinner's in 10 minutes, she said, dismissing me. Go wash up. You're getting grease on everything. I headed upstairs, pausing at our bedroom door. On Evelyn's dresser sat a new purse leather with some designer logo I didn't recognize. I picked it up, feeling the buttery soft material. The price tag was gone, but I knew quality when I saw it. This wasn't some discount store find. You like it? Evelyn's voice made me jump. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed. It was on sale. 70% off at the outlet mall. It's nice, I said carefully. Must have been expensive even on sale. I work hard, Henry. I deserve nice things sometimes. Her tone dared me to argue. I didn't. Instead, I set the purse down gently and headed for the shower. Under the hot water, I tried to wash away the unease settling in my gut. Evelyn had been different lately, distant, critical, always comparing our life to others. The woman I'd married had been content with picnics by the James River and hand-me-down furniture we'd refinished together. When had that changed? Our 15th anniversary had been 3 months ago. I'd spent weeks crafting her a jewelry box from reclaimed wood from the original USS Enterprise, a piece of history from the yard. Each joint was perfect, dovetailed with precision that had taken me years to master. Inside, I'd carved our initials and the date we'd met. When I'd given it to her, she'd smiled, but it hadn't reached her eyes. It's beautiful, Henry. You're so thoughtful. She'd run her fingers over the smooth wood. Maybe someday there'll be real jewelry to put in it. That had stung more than I'd let on. I'd wanted to tell her then about the safe deposit box downtown, about the investment portfolios and the dividend checks I had automatically reinvested. But something held me back. Maybe it was the way she'd said real jewelry, like my love wasn't real enough without diamonds to prove it. Dinner that night was typical Genesis chattering about her history project on the Revolutionary War, Skylar explaining some engineering concept she'd learned from YouTube, Evelyn half listening while she scrolled through her phone. I caught glimpses of her screen Instagram, mostly, full of perfectly curated lives that made ours look shabby by comparison. Sarah posted pictures from their trip to Paris, she announced. Dr. Brown took her for their anniversary. Dr. Brown? I asked, though the name rang a bell. Parker Brown, the new cardiologist. I've mentioned him. She had, usually in the context of how successful he was, how charming, how he'd complimented her work in the cardiac unit. Must be nice, Genesis said, mimicking her mother's earlier tone so perfectly that Skylar snorted milk through her nose. Genesis Marie, Evelyn scolded, but there was no real heat in it. She was too busy staring at her phone, at lives she thought were better than ours. After dinner, I helped Skylar with the Camry. She'd done a solid job on the alternator, just needed a few adjustments. While we worked, she said something that stopped me cold. Mom's been weird lately, hasn't she? I kept my voice neutral. What do you mean, sweetheart? I don't know. She's just... Different. Like she's here but not really here. And she's been working a lot of extra shifts. The hospital's been busy, I said, though I'd noticed the same thing. Evelyn had volunteered for 3 weekend shifts this month, all coincidentally when Dr. Parker Brown was on duty. I guess. Skylar tightened a bolt with more force than necessary. I just miss when she used to seem happy with us. She is happy with us, I said automatically, but the words felt hollow. That night, after the girls were in bed, I found Evelyn on the back porch, wine glass in hand, staring at the river in the distance. The moonlight made her look younger, softer, like the girl I'd fallen in love with. "Penny for your thoughts?" I asked, settling beside her on the swing. "Just thinking about life," she said vaguely. "About choices." "Any particular choices?" She was quiet for so long I thought she wouldn't answer. Then, "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we'd made different choices? If you'd gone to college instead of the yard? If I'd specialized, become a nurse practitioner or something more? I love my job, Ev. I love building something with my hands, being part of something important." "Important," she repeated, and there was that tone again, dismissive, almost mocking. "You weld metal, Henry. It's not exactly changing the world." "Those ships defend our country," I said, trying not to let the hurt show. "Every submarine, every carrier, they keep people safe. That matters." "To who? The admirals who never know your name? The government contractors getting rich while you come home covered in dirt for an hourly wage?" "It matters to me," I said quietly. "I thought it mattered to you, too. You used to be proud of what I did." She drained her wine glass. "I was young then. I thought love was enough." She stood abruptly. "I'm going to bed. Early shift tomorrow." I sat alone on the swing for another hour, watching the lights from the shipyard reflect on the water. 3 miles away, the USS Gerald Ford was getting its final touches, the most advanced aircraft carrier in the world. I'd helped build her from the keel up. My welds were in her bones, would be sailing the seas long after I was gone. That should mean something. That did mean something. But apparently not to my wife. I thought about Grandpa Joe then, about his warning. Had he seen something in Evelyn that I'd been too love-blind to notice? Or had she changed? Money does change people, he'd said, but so does the lack of it, or the perception of lack. Inside, I stopped by our bedroom door. Evelyn was already asleep, or pretending to be, turned away from my side of the bed. On her nightstand, her phone lit up with a text notification. Before the screen went dark, I saw the preview. "Parker Brown. Can't wait to see." The rest was cut off, but my stomach clenched anyway. I told myself it was nothing. Hospital business. Maybe about a patient. Parker was her colleague, nothing more. But as I lay in bed that night, listening to Evelyn's breathing and the distant horn of a ship leaving port, I couldn't shake the feeling that our perfect illusion was developing cracks, like metal fatigue in a bad weld, invisible to the naked eye, but there all the same, waiting for the right pressure to make everything fall apart. Looking back now, I should have paid attention to that instinct. Should have seen the signs for what they were: the new clothes, the criticism, the late shifts, the way she looked at her phone like it held secrets. But I was still that fool in love, willing to ignore the hairline fractures in my marriage because acknowledging them would mean acknowledging that the woman I'd built my life around might not be the woman I thought she was. The next morning I woke before dawn, as always. Evelyn was already gone another early shift, her note said. I made breakfast for the girls, packed my lunch, and headed to the yard. As I passed through the gates of Newport News shipbuilding, I looked up at the administrative buildings where the executives worked. Somewhere up there, in climate-controlled offices, men in suits made decisions about the company I owned a massive stake in. They didn't know that Henry Thompson, welder in Bay 12, could buy and sell most of them, and that was fine by me. I had my secret, buried deep like a submarine running silent. But Evelyn, I was beginning to realize, had secrets of her own. The difference was, mine was protecting our family from the corruption of easy money. I wonder what hers was protecting. Chapter 2. By late 2018, something had shifted in our house like tectonic plates grinding against each other, building pressure for an earthquake nobody wanted to acknowledge. I'd started keeping track of Evelyn's schedule in my head, not because I didn't trust her, or so I told myself, but because the patterns were becoming impossible to ignore. It was a Thursday in January 2019 when I first met Dr. Parker Brown face to face. The hospital was throwing their annual charity gala, and Evelyn had insisted we attend. "It's important for my career," she'd said, standing in our bedroom in a new black dress that cost more than my monthly tool allowance. "Besides, you never take me anywhere nice." That stung, considering I'd suggested dinner at the waterfront just last week, only to be told it was too pedestrian. The country club ballroom was filled with the smell of money and medical degrees. I stood there in my 10-year-old suit, the one I'd worn to my father's retirement party, feeling like a wrench in a surgical kit. Evelyn had already disappeared into a cluster of nurses and doctors, her laugh carrying across the room, bright and animated in a way it never was at home anymore. "You must be Henry." The voice was smooth as aged whiskey. I turned to find a man extending his hand, tall, silver-templed, with the kind of jaw you saw on medical dramas. "Parker Brown, I've heard so much about you from Evelyn." His handshake was firm, but somehow felt like a challenge. He had surgeon's hands, soft, manicured, nothing like my scarred and calloused grip. "All good, I hope," I said, though something in his smile made me doubt it. "Of course. She says you build ships. That must be fascinating work." The way he said fascinating made it sound quaint, like a child's hobby. "I'm a welder at Newport News," I said simply. "We're working on the Columbia-class submarines now." "How wonderfully honest," he said, and I couldn't tell if it was a compliment or an insult. Physical labor is so important. Someone has to do it, right? Before I could respond, Evelyn appeared at Parker's elbow like she'd been summoned. "Oh, good, you two are meeting." Parker's been such a help with the cardiac unit reorganization. I don't know what we'd do without him. The look that passed between them lasted maybe half a second, but it hit me like a sledgehammer to the gut. It was intimate, knowing, the kind of look that came from shared secrets. "Your wife is being modest," Parker said, his eyes never leaving hers. "She's the real star of our department. The way she handled the Morrison case last week was nothing short of brilliant." Evelyn blushed, actually blushed, and touched his arm. "You're too kind." I stood there like a third wheel at my own wife's flirtation, watching her shine for another man in a way she hadn't shown for me in months. Maybe years. "If you'll excuse me," I muttered. "I need to find the restroom." Neither of them tried to stop me. I spent the next 20 minutes on the balcony, sucking in cold January air and trying to convince myself I was overreacting. So what if she had a work friend? So what if that friend looked like he'd stepped out of a medical equipment catalog? Evelyn came home to me every night. That's what mattered. Except increasingly, she didn't. February brought a new pattern. Tuesday and Thursday night shifts that hadn't existed before. Weekend conferences that required overnight stays. Emergency cardiac consults that kept her at the hospital until 3 a.m. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under," she'd say when I questioned it. "Parker's recommending me for the Advanced Cardiac Care certification. This could change everything for us, Henry. Better position, better pay. Isn't that what you want?" What I wanted was my wife back, but that seemed to be the one thing not on offer. The breaking point came in March. I'd come home early with a migraine. The fumes from a bad batch of welding gas had gotten to me. The house was quiet. Genesis at soccer practice. Skylar at her part-time job at the marina. I was heading to our bedroom for some aspirin when I heard Evelyn's voice from the home office. "I miss you too," she was saying, soft and breathy. "These stolen moments aren't enough anymore." I froze in the hallway, blood turning to ice water in my veins. "I know, baby. Soon. Henry doesn't suspect anything." A pause. "Of course I'm sure. He's too trusting. Besides, he's at work until 6 every day, like clockwork." Except today, I wasn't. I backed away slowly, silently, my steel-toed boots somehow soundless on the creaky floorboards. In the kitchen, I made noise, dropped my lunch pail, ran the tap, coughed loudly. By the time Evelyn emerged from the office, I was seated at the table with a glass of water, looking appropriately miserable. "Henry, what are you doing home?" There was panic in her voice, quickly covered. "Migraine, bad fumes at work." I didn't meet her eyes, afraid she'd see what I knew. "Thought you had a shift today." "Canceled. Low census. The lie came so easily. Let me get you some ibuprofen. She fussed over me for exactly 3 minutes, long enough to seem concerned but not genuinely worried. Then her phone buzzed. I should take this. Hospital. Another lie. She stepped onto the back porch, but through the window, I could see her smiling at whatever message she'd received. That night, I lay awake listening to her breathe, wondering when she'd become a stranger. The woman beside me looked like Evelyn, smelled like Evelyn's lavender shampoo, but something essential had changed. Or maybe, and this thought was worse, maybe she'd always been this person, and I'd just been too blind to see it. Over the next weeks, I became a detective in my own life. I checked phone records. She was deleting texts, but not call logs, rookie mistake. I noted mileage on her car. Those weekend conferences were apparently very local. I even drove by the hospital once during one of her emergency shifts, only to find her car wasn't in the employee lot. The evidence mounted like rust on exposed steel. A receipt for a restaurant I'd never been to, dinner for two, paid in cash. A man's watch in her jewelry box. I'm getting it fixed for you as a surprise, she'd said when I found it, though I'd never owned a Rolex in my life. The way she'd guard her phone like it contained nuclear codes, taking it to the bathroom, sleeping with it under her pillow. You're being paranoid, my cousin Xavier said when I finally confided in him over beers at our usual waterfront dive. Xavier was an ER doctor, one of the good ones who still remembered where he came from. Maybe she's planning something for your anniversary? Our anniversary was 2 months ago, I reminded him. She forgot. Shit, man. He peeled the label off his Budweiser, thinking, what are you gonna do? I don't know. It was the truth. Part of me wanted to confront her, have it out, either fix things or end them. But a bigger part, the strategic part that had kept my inheritance secret all these years, wanted to know exactly what I was dealing with first. You could hire a PI, Xavier suggested. No. If I'm wrong and she finds out, that's the end of trust forever. Sounds like trust might already be gone, Primo. He wasn't wrong. It was April when I found the smoking gun, though I wasn't looking for it. I was doing laundry. Evelyn had been too busy lately for household chores when I found a credit card statement in her scrubs pocket. A card I didn't know existed, in her maiden name, with charges that made my head spin, hotels, restaurants, a jewelry store. Women's lingerie from a shop that sure as hell wasn't Victoria's Secret, but something far more expensive. The billing address was her parents' house in Richmond, her parents who'd been dead for 5 years. I sat on our bed, holding that statement like it was a live grenade. This wasn't just an affair. This was a complete second life, funded by God knows what. We didn't have this kind of money. At least she didn't think we did. That night at dinner, I watched her across the table, this stranger wearing my wife's face. She was animated, talking about some breakthrough at work, gesturing with her fork. The girls hung on every word their mother, the hero nurse, saving lives and taking names. Dr. Brown says I have natural instincts, she was saying. He's recommending me for a specialized training program. It's very exclusive. That's great, Mom, Skylar said, though I caught her exchanging a look with Genesis. The girls had noticed too. Of course they had. Kids always know when something's wrong in the house, like canaries in a coal mine. When would this training be? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Oh, various weekends over the next few months. Some overnight sessions in Richmond, where her dead parents allegedly received her credit card bills. That's quite a commitment, I said. Well, some of us have ambition, Henry. There it was, the sharp edge that had become her default tone with me. Some of us want more from life than just punching a clock. Dad doesn't just punch a clock, Genesis said quietly. He builds submarines, nuclear submarines that protect our country. Evelyn rolled her eyes. Yes, well, I'm sure the Navy appreciates his contribution. The dismissiveness in her voice made me want to tell her right then about the 40% stake, about the board meetings I skipped, about the dividends that could buy her precious Dr. Brown's entire practice, but I held my tongue. That secret was my armor now, and I had a feeling I was going to need it. After dinner, I helped the girls with homework while Evelyn disappeared into our bedroom with her phone. Through the door, I could hear her laughing, low and intimate. The sound twisted in my gut like a knife. "Dad?" Skylar's voice pulled me back. "You okay?" "Yes, sweetheart. Just tired." She studied me with those sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Is everything okay? With you and Mom?" I wanted to lie, to protect her from the truth a little longer. But she deserved better than that. "We're working through some things," I said carefully. "Adult stuff. Nothing for you to worry about." "We're not stupid, Dad," Genesis said, not looking up from her algebra. "We know Mom's been different. Meaner." "She's not mean," I started to defend, but Skylar cut me off. "She is, though. To you. She acts like you embarrass her or something." Her voice cracked with anger. "Like being a welder isn't good enough. Your mother's under a lot of stress. Stop making excuses for her." Genesis slammed her book shut. "She's the one who changed, not you. You still come home every night. You still show up for our games and concerts. You still act like you love us." "I do love you, both of you, more than anything." "We know," Skylar said softly. "We love you too, Dad." They both hugged me then, and I held on tight, breathing in their shampoo and teenage girl perfume, anchoring myself to what was real and good in my life. Whatever happened with Evelyn, I had these two. They were worth fighting for. Later, after the girls were in bed, I found myself in the basement, staring at Grandpa Joe's desk. Inside, locked away, were the documents that could change everything. Stock certificates, bank statements, financial power that Evelyn couldn't even imagine. But also my grandfather's letter, written in his shaky handwriting. "Money is a test, boy. It shows you who people really are. Use it wisely, or don't use it at all, but never let it use you." I'd kept the secret this long to test Evelyn's love. Now I was keeping it to protect myself and the girls from whatever she and Parker were planning. Because they were planning something I was sure of it now. The investment opportunity she'd mentioned last week, trying to get me to liquidate my 401k. The life insurance papers she'd left out, asking me to increase the coverage. The way she'd been documenting every penny I spent, claiming we needed to budget better. She was building a case for something. Divorce, maybe, or worse. I thought about the text I'd glimpsed last week. "Soon we'll have everything we deserve." What did Evelyn think she deserved? And what was she willing to do to get it? Standing there in my basement, surrounded by tools and half-finished projects, I made a decision. I wouldn't confront her yet. Instead, I'd do what I did best: build a case, build evidence, build protection around my daughters and my assets. Evelyn thought she was married to a simple welder who came home dirty and tired, too trusting to see what was happening under his own roof. She was half right. I did come home dirty and tired, but I wasn't too trusting anymore, and I wasn't as simple as she thought. The storm was coming. I could feel it the way you feel the pressure drop before a hurricane, but this time I'd be ready. I'd reinforce the hull, seal the watertight doors, and make sure that when the waves came crashing down, the girls and I would still be standing. Evelyn and her doctor could plan whatever they wanted, but they were about to learn that Henry Thompson Welder, father and secret millionaire, wasn't going down without a fight. Chapter 3. The moment that changed everything came on an unseasonably warm Tuesday in April 2020. I'd been fighting a losing battle with a particularly stubborn weld joint all morning when my supervisor, Mike, called me over. "Thompson, you look like death warmed over. Go home." "I'm fine, Mike." "The hell you are. You've been redoing the same weld for an hour. That's not like you." He studied me with concern. "Everything okay at home?" "Yeah, just haven't been sleeping well." That was an understatement. I'd been averaging 3 hours a night, my mind churning over Evelyn's lies like a problem weld that wouldn't hold. "Go home. Rest. We need you at full capacity for the submarine pressure tests tomorrow." I didn't argue further. Maybe I'd surprise Evelyn with lunch, try to recapture something of what we'd lost. Hope dies hard, even when it's stupid. The drive home took 12 minutes instead of the usual 20 no traffic at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday. I parked on the street instead of the driveway, some instinct making me cautious. The house looked peaceful from the outside. Evelyn's Camry in its usual spot, the spring flowers we'd planted together years ago blooming like nothing was wrong. I entered through the back door, quiet out of habit from years of trying not to wake sleeping babies. The kitchen was clean, too clean. Evelyn only deep cleaned when she was anxious about something. The living room was empty, but I could hear voices upstairs. My heart started pounding before my brain could process why. The stairs that usually creaked stayed silent under my careful steps. 17 years of living in this house meant I knew exactly where to place my feet. At the landing, I could hear her clearly now, that laugh that used to be just for me. "I know, baby. I can't wait either." Her voice floated from our bedroom, sultry and warm. "Henry's at work until 6. We have time." I moved toward our bedroom door, which stood slightly ajar. Through the crack, I could see Evelyn on our bed wearing the silk robe I'd bought her for Christmas. Her laptop was open, and even from this angle I could see Parker's face on the screen, could see that he wasn't wearing a shirt. "You look incredible," he was saying. "That robe does things to me." "You should see what's underneath," my wife purred. My wife. In our bedroom. On our bed where we'd conceived our children. "Soon," Parker replied. "Once we get our hands on the money, we can stop sneaking around. Maybe Cabo for a month? Or Paris? Anywhere but here." Evelyn sighed, stretching like a cat. "I'm so tired of this life, Parker. The suburban mediocrity, the blue-collar husband who thinks a big night out is Applebee's." "Hey, you married him," Parker laughed. "I was young and stupid. I thought his simplicity was charming. Now it's just suffocating. Do you know he gave me a wooden jewelry box for our anniversary? Hand-carved." She said it like it was something disgusting. Meanwhile, Sandra's husband bought her a tennis bracelet from Tiffany's. My hands were shaking. That jewelry box had taken me 3 months to make, each detail perfect, sanded until it was smooth as silk. "Just a little longer, baby," Parker soothed. "Your plan with his parents is brilliant. Once we have that inheritance—" "It should have worked already," Evelyn interrupted, frustration creeping into her voice. "Leo's heart condition makes him perfect for it. One good shock and you'll be the grieving daughter-in-law who inherits everything. Henry told you they have significant savings, right? He mentioned it once when he was drunk. At least a few million in assets, maybe more. His father was some big-shot naval contractor before he retired." I bit down on my knuckle to keep from making a sound. My parents had maybe 50,000 in savings. Tops. Where had she gotten millions from? And what did she mean about my father's heart condition? "What about life insurance?" Parker asked. "I've been working on him to increase it. Told him it's for the girls' college funds." She laughed, ugly and sharp. "He's so trusting, it's almost pathetic. He actually believes I'm working all these extra shifts." "Where does he think you are now?" "Hospital, administrative meeting." She shifted and the robe fell open. "God, I need you. This pretending is killing me." "Soon, baby. We just need a trigger event for his father, then wait a respectable time after the inheritance comes through. Then a quick divorce, and we're free." Or, Evelyn's voice dropped to something darker. "Accidents happen at shipyards all the time. All that dangerous equipment." My blood turned to ice. Were they actually discussing? "Ev, I'm kidding." She laughed, but it didn't sound like she was kidding. "Mostly, though it would be simpler. Widow's benefits are better than divorce settlements." I backed away from the door, my work boots silent on the carpet, my mind screaming. In the hallway bathroom, I gripped the sink and stared at my reflection. The man looking back at me was a stranger, pale, hollow-eyed, someone who'd just heard his wife casually discuss his potential murder like it was a dinner menu option. I splashed cold water on my face, trying to think. I couldn't confront her, not yet. She'd mentioned a plan for my father. I needed to know what that was. And I needed evidence, real evidence, not just overheard conversations. Back in the hallway, I could still hear them talking, making plans for a weekend together when I'd be at my cousin's bachelor party next month. Except Xavier wasn't getting married. That was just another lie I'd told Evelyn to see what she'd do with a weekend alone. Now I knew. I crept downstairs and out the back door, making it to my truck before the shaking really hit. I drove to the parking lot of an abandoned store 3 blocks away and called in sick for the rest of the day. Then I sat there, in my truck that smelled like metal shavings and honest sweat, and tried to process what I'd just learned. My wife was having an affair. That was bad enough. My wife was planning to steal from my parents. Worse. My wife had casually discussed my potential death as a financial strategy. That was. I didn't have words for what that was. I called Xavier. "Primo, what's wrong? You sound like hell. Can you meet me? Now? It's an emergency." "Where?" "Murphy's Bar. Back booth. Give me 20 minutes. Murphy's was the kind of dive where shipyard workers went to drink away their shifts, dark enough that nobody looked too close at anyone else. Xavier found me in the back, 3 whiskeys deep despite it being noon. "Jesus, Henry, what happened?" I told him everything. The affair, the money plot, the casual discussion of my demise. By the end, his face was gray. "We need to call the police." "And tell them what? That I overheard my wife say mean things about me? That's not a crime. The fraud hasn't happened yet. And the affair is just grounds for divorce, not arrest." Xavier rubbed his face. "What about the threat to your dad?" "What threat?" "She mentioned his heart condition. She's a nurse. That's normal shop talk." "This is fucked, Primo." "Yeah, I signaled for another whiskey. But I need to be smart about this. She's planning something for my father, something involving his heart. I need to protect him without tipping her off that I know." "How?" "I don't know yet." I pulled out my phone looking at a family photo from last Christmas. We all looked so happy. What a joke. "First, I need evidence, real evidence, and I need to protect my assets." "You mean the inheritance?" "Yeah." I told Xavier about it years ago, one drunken night after his residency graduation. He was the only one who knew. "I need to move things around. Make sure she can't touch it even if—" "If what?" "If something happens to me." Xavier grabbed my wrist. "Nothing's going to happen to you. We won't let it." "She mentioned shipyard accidents, X. Do you know how easy it would be? One loose bolt on a scaffold, one malfunction with a welding torch, one slip near the dry dock." "Stop. We're going to handle this, but you need a lawyer. A good one." "I know." I thought of Axel Martinez, a friend from high school who'd gone into family law. "I'll call Axel tomorrow." "Tonight. Call him tonight." I nodded, though my mind was already racing ahead. I needed to document everything. Record conversations if I could, protect my parents, protect the girls. God, how was I going to protect them from this? "Do Skylar and Genesis know?" Xavier asked, reading my mind. "They know something's wrong. They're too smart not to notice. You have to tell them something." "If Evelyn's as dangerous as she seems, I know." The whiskey burned my throat. "But how do you tell your daughters their mother is?" I couldn't finish the sentence. Monster seemed too strong. But what else do you call someone who plots against their family for money? That night, I went home and pretended everything was normal. Evelyn greeted me with a kiss on the cheek, asked about my day, served pot roast like she hadn't been video-sexing another man in our bed hours earlier. I choked down dinner, helped with homework, watched TV like a normal family. "You're quiet tonight," Evelyn observed during a commercial. "Tired, tough day at work." Poor baby. Her sympathy was so fake it made my teeth hurt. "Maybe you should take some time off. Rest. Spend time with your father." My blood chilled. "Why my father specifically?" "Oh, no reason. Just, he's not getting younger. Heart conditions can be unpredictable." She said it casually, but I caught the calculating look in her eyes. She was already setting something up, planting seeds. "His last checkup was good," I said carefully. "Doctor said he's stable. For now." She patted my hand. "But stress can trigger episodes, even good stress, like excitement or surprises." Warning bells clanged in my head. What kind of surprise was she planning? That night, after Evelyn took one of her sleeping pills, a new habit in the last few months, I crept down to the basement. In Grandpa Joe's desk, beneath the stock certificates, I found what I needed: the business card for the investment firm that managed my portfolio. I also pulled out a small recorder I used for making notes about projects. Starting tomorrow, I'd carry it everywhere. If Evelyn wanted to play games, I'd make sure I had proof of every move. But first, I had another call to make. I dialed my parents' landline, knowing Dad would answer. Mom went to bed early. Henry? Everything okay, son? Yeah, Dad. Hey, listen, your doctor still have you on that heart monitor? The portable EKG? Yeah, wearing it now. Pain in the ass, but doctor's orders after the last episode. Why? Just making sure you're taking care of yourself. Maybe you should wear it all the time for a while, even at home. That seems excessive. Humor me? And Dad, if Evelyn calls you about anything, maybe let me know first. There was a pause. Henry, is everything all right with you two? We're working through some things. Just be careful, okay? And maybe don't be alone with her for a while. Son, you're scaring me. I'm probably being paranoid. Just trust me on this? Of course. Henry? Yeah, Dad. Whatever's going on, we're here for you. You and the girls. I know. Love you, Dad. Love you too, son. I hung up and sat in my dark basement, surrounded by tools and half-finished projects, planning my next moves. Evelyn thought she was playing chess with a welder who could barely manage checkers. She was about to learn different. The recorder would capture conversations. My phone would document everything. Axel would protect my assets. Xavier would watch my back. And I'd protect my family, even if it meant protecting them from one of their own. Looking back, I should have seen this coming. The signs were all there, the contempt, the secrecy, the growing coldness. But love makes you stupid, makes you blind to things you don't want to see. Well, my eyes were open now, wide open, and what I saw was a woman I didn't recognize wearing the face of someone I'd loved. The war for my family's future had begun. Evelyn had fired the first shot without me even knowing we were in battle, but I knew now. And I don't lose fights I know I'm in. Not when my daughter's future is at stake. Not when my parents' lives might be in danger. And sure as hell not to a woman who looked at my love like it was worthless, because it didn't come with a doctor's salary attached. She wanted money? Fine. She could have all the money she could handle from a prison commissary account. Chapter 4. June in Virginia comes at you like a wet blanket thrown over your head, thick, suffocating, and impossible to escape. June 2020 was worse than most, the humidity so dense you could practically swim through it. But the weather was the least of my problems that summer. Evelyn had been acting strange for weeks, more affectionate than she'd been in months, almost nervous in her attention to detail about my schedule. "What time did you say you'd be home today?" she asked that morning, June 15th, refilling my coffee with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Same as always. 6, maybe 6:30 if we run into issues with the hull inspection." "No chance you'd get off early?" "Not today." "Why?" "No reason, just wondering if I should start dinner earlier." She kissed my cheek, her lips cold despite the morning heat. "Your father's coming by today to see the girls." "That's nice. They miss him." "Yes." Something flickered across her face. "They do." I should have known then. Should have called in sick, should have stayed home, should have done something. But I went to work like it was any other day, welding seams on a nuclear submarine while my wife prepared to execute a plan that would have killed my father if not for the courage of a 16-year-old girl. The call came at 3:47 p.m. I remember the exact time because I was looking at the clock, counting the hours until I could go home and pretend my marriage wasn't a disaster. My supervisor found me in Bay 12. "Thompson, emergency call for you, your family." I ran to the office, my steel toes echoing off the concrete like gunshots. The phone felt slippery in my sweaty grip. "Dad?" It was Skylar, and she was crying. "Dad, you need to come home, now. It's Grandpa." "What happened?" "He had a heart attack. The ambulance is here. Mom, Dad, something's wrong." "Something's really wrong." "I'm coming." I drove those 12 miles in 8 minutes, running 2 red lights and praying to God I'd never really believed in that my father would be okay. The ambulance was still in our driveway when I screeched to a stop, its lights painting our suburban street in alternating red and white. Xavier was there. He looked up from where he was working on my father, and the relief on his face when he saw me told me Dad was alive. "Henry, he's stable. We're taking him in now." My father lay on the stretcher, gray-faced but breathing, his eyes finding mine. "I'm okay, son," he whispered, though he clearly wasn't. "Save your strength, Dad." As they loaded him into the ambulance, I found Skylar and Genesis huddled on the porch. Genesis was silent, but Skylar was shaking with what I recognized as rage, not fear. "Where's your mother?" "Inside." Skylar's voice was ice. "Dad, she did this." "What do you mean?" "I'll tell you later. Just be careful with her." I found Evelyn in the living room, wringing her hands in a performance worthy of an Oscar. "Oh, Henry, thank God you're here. It was so sudden. One moment he was fine, and then—" "What happened?" I kept my voice level, though my hands wanted to shake her until the truth fell out. I was in the kitchen when I heard him cry out. He was clutching his chest, gasping. I tried to help, but— "Mom!" Genesis appeared in the doorway, her 14-year-old face hard as granite. "Stop lying." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. "Genesis, honey, you're upset." "I heard you on the phone with him. You told Grandpa that Dad was in an accident, that he was dying." The words hung in the air like a noose. Evelyn's face cycled through emotions, shock, fear, calculation before settling on indignation. "That's absurd. I would never—" "I recorded it." Genesis held up her phone. "I've been recording a lot of things lately." My 14-year-old daughter, had been gathering evidence, because she'd known, maybe before I had, that her mother was dangerous. "You're confused, sweetheart," Evelyn said, but her voice had gone flat. "The stress—" "Play it," I said to Genesis. She hit play. Evelyn's voice filled the room, high and hysterical. "Leo! Leo, you need to sit down. There's been an accident at the shipyard. Henry's been hurt. Oh God, Leo, they don't think he's going to make it. He's asking for you." I stopped the recording. The silence that followed was deafening. "It was a misunderstanding," Evelyn said finally. "Someone called me with wrong information." "Who?" I asked. "Who called you?" I don't remember. I was so upset." "Stop." I was surprised how calm my voice sounded. "Just stop." Skylar entered then, her face tear-streaked but determined. "I called 911. Mom didn't want me to." "That's not true," Evelyn protested. "She kept saying to wait, that she needed to check his vitals first, but I could see he was dying. So I called anyway." "I'm a nurse. I was assessing—" "You were watching," Skylar said flatly. "You were watching him die." The mask finally slipped. For just a second, I saw the real Evelyn cold, calculating, caught. Then it was back, replaced by tears and protestations. "How can you say such things? I love your grandfather. I was trying to help." "Then why?" Genesis asked quietly. "Did you tell Parker on the phone yesterday that the Leo situation would be resolved soon?" Evelyn went white. I pulled out my phone. "Girls, go to your rooms. Pack bags. You're staying with your Aunt Maria tonight." They left without argument. When we were alone, Evelyn tried one more time. "Henry, you have to believe me. The girls are confused. This is all a misunderstanding." "I know about Parker." The words landed like a punch. She actually staggered. "I don't know what you think you know. I know everything. The affair. The money you think my parents have. The plan to trigger my father's heart condition." I stepped closer and she backed away. "What I don't know is how you became this person, this thing that would murder an old man for money that doesn't even exist." "It does exist," she screamed it, sudden and vicious. "I know it does. You're just too much of a failure to access it. Your whole family treats you like the poor relation, the welder who couldn't do better. But they have money, real money, and I deserve—" She caught herself, but it was too late. "You deserve," I repeated. "What exactly do you deserve, Evelyn?" "More than this." She gestured around our home with disgust. "More than a tract house and a husband who comes home stinking of metal. More than watching other women live the life I should have." "So you tried to kill my father." "I didn't—" She stopped, calculating again. "You can't prove anything." "Genesis is recording. Proves I delivered bad news badly. That's not a crime. What about the delay in calling 911? I'm a medical professional. I was assessing the situation." She was right, legally speaking. Morally was another story, but you can't prosecute someone for being morally bankrupt. The affair with Parker isn't illegal either. She'd found her footing now, the tears gone. Face it, Henry, you have nothing, just the word of two emotional teenagers and your own paranoid delusions. Maybe, but I have enough for a divorce. Fine. I'll take half of everything, plus alimony. Have fun living in a studio apartment on a welder's salary. The girls will testify about what they saw. And I'll testify about your drinking, your paranoia, your emotional abuse. She smiled, cold as winter steel. Who do you think the court will believe? The professional nurse or the blue-collar drunk? I don't drink. You do now. I've been documenting it for months. Empty bottles in your truck, receipts from liquor stores, witnesses who've seen you stumbling drunk. Those are lies. Prove it. We stood there facing off in the living room where we'd once opened Christmas presents and celebrated birthdays. The woman I'd loved was gone, if she'd ever existed at all. In her place stood a stranger who'd apparently been planning my destruction while sleeping beside me. Get out, I said quietly. This is my house too. Your boyfriend has a place, doesn't he? Go there. And if I don't? Then I call the police and report that you tried to kill my father. Maybe I can't prove it in court, but I can make enough noise that the hospital starts asking questions. How's that going to look for your career? For Parker's? She considered this, then grabbed her purse. This isn't over. No, I agreed. It's not. After she left, I sat in my empty house and called Xavier. How's your dad? Stable. Triple bypass tomorrow morning. If Skylar hadn't called 911 when she did. Jesus. X, I need you to do something for me. Can you get the dispatch records? Prove when the call came in and from whose phone? Already did. The call came from Skylar's cell. Evelyn's phone shows no 911 call. That's something. Henry, you need to be careful. If she's capable of this, I know. I looked around my house, seeing danger in every corner. I'm getting the girls out, sending them to stay with Maria in D.C. for a while. What about you? I've got work to do. That night, after getting the girls settled at their aunt's, I went to the hospital. Dad was awake, tubes and wires making him look fragile in a way I'd never seen before. Henry. Hey, Dad. How you feeling? Like someone parked a truck on my chest. He studied my face. Skylar told me what happened. What really happened. Dad, is it true? Did Evelyn really tell me you were dying? I couldn't lie to him. Yeah, Dad, she did. He closed his eyes. Why? Money. She thinks you and Mom have millions hidden away. That's insane. We're comfortable, but millions? I know. Henry. He opened his eyes, and they were sharp despite the medication. What aren't you telling me? I made a decision then. Dad, remember Grandpa Joe's will? He left you some stocks or something, right? More than some stocks. Dad, I own 40% of Newport News Shipbuilding. The heart monitor beeped faster. Easy, Dad. Breathe. 40%? Worth about $3 billion, depending on the market. Jesus Christ, Henry. Why didn't you tell anyone? Because I wanted to be sure people loved me for me, not for money. And Evelyn doesn't know? No. And she's never going to. Dad was quiet for a long moment. Then, she tried to kill me for money you actually have, but she doesn't know about. Yeah. That's either ironic or tragic. Both, I think. We sat in silence, the heart monitor keeping steady time. What are you going to do? Dad finally asked. Protect my family. Get divorced. Make sure she never hurts anyone again. Be careful, son. Desperate people do desperate things. I know. Henry? Mom's voice came from the doorway. She looked haggard, aged 10 years in one day. Oh, thank God you're here. I held her while she cried, this woman who'd raised me with love and strength, who Evelyn had been prepared to widow for imaginary money. It's okay, Mom. Dad's going to be fine. The doctor said if the ambulance had been 5 minutes later. 5 minutes. The difference between life and death. The margin Evelyn had been counting on. But it wasn't. Skylar saved him. Our brave girl. Mom wiped her eyes. Where is she? Where are the girls? With Maria. I thought it best, given everything. Mom studied my face. Henry, what's going on? Where's Evelyn? I looked at Dad, who nodded slightly. Mom, we need to talk. I told her everything. The affair, the plot, what had really triggered Dad's heart attack. By the end, she was gripping my hand so tight it hurt. That bitch, she said, and I'd never heard my mother swear before. That evil, conniving bitch. Mom, no, Henry. No excuses for her. She tried to murder your father. She betrayed you, betrayed the girls. There's no forgiveness for that. I'm handling it. You better be. And Henry, you document everything. Every text, every email, every interaction. Build a case so airtight she can't wriggle out of it. Already started. Good. She kissed my forehead like I was still her little boy. We're going to get through this. All of us. Together. That night, I went home to my empty house and started war preparations. I pulled out every document, every photo, every piece of evidence I'd been gathering. I made copies, stored them in multiple locations. I called Axel Martinez and set up an emergency meeting. I installed security cameras. I changed the locks. And I sat down to write a letter to my daughters, in case something happened to me. My dear girls, if you're reading this, it means something has happened to me. First, know that I love you both more than words can express. You are the best things I ever did with my life. Second, know that whatever happens, you're going to be okay. I've made sure of it. There's money more than you can imagine set aside for you. Uncle Xavier and Aunt Maria know how to access it. Third, and most important, none of this is your fault. Your mother made choices that I don't understand and can't forgive, but those choices don't reflect on you. You are not responsible for her actions. Be brave, like you were when you saved Grandpa. Be strong, like you are every day. And know that wherever I am, I'm proud of you. All my love, Dad. I sealed the letter, gave copies to Xavier and Axel, and prepared for whatever came next. The battle for my family had begun in earnest. Evelyn had drawn first blood, but she'd failed to land a killing blow. Now it was my turn. Chapter 5. The week after Dad's heart attack felt like walking through a minefield blindfolded. Every conversation with Evelyn was a performance. Every shared meal a test of my ability to swallow rage along with my food. The Virginia summer had settled over Newport News like a wet wool blanket, but the heat outside was nothing compared to the burning in my chest every time I looked at my wife. It was Thursday morning, 3 days after Dad's surgery. I sat at our kitchen table, watching Evelyn butter her toast like she hadn't tried to murder my father. She'd perfected this act, the concerned daughter-in-law. Dark circles painted under her eyes with concealer to look appropriately exhausted from worry. I'm going to visit Leo today, she announced, not looking up from her phone. Bring him some of that soup he likes from the deli. That's thoughtful, I said, my voice steady as a welder's hand. What time? Around noon. Why? Just wondering. Might join you if I can get away from work. Her shoulders tensed almost imperceptibly. Oh, you don't need to do that. I know how busy you are with the submarine project. Family comes first, I said, taking a slow sip of coffee. Besides, Dad asked to see me. That was a lie. Dad was barely conscious most of the time, the triple bypass having taken more out of him than expected. But I needed to see how Evelyn would react. He did? Her voice pitched higher. When? Xavier mentioned it. Said Dad was asking for all of us. She relaxed slightly at Xavier's name. She still thought my cousin was just another clueless relative. If she only knew he'd been documenting everything, using his medical access to pull records that would bury her. After Evelyn left for her shift, Parker's apartment most likely, I called Skylar. She was staying with my Aunt Maria in D.C., but we talked every day. How's Genesis holding up? I asked. She's angry, Dad. Really angry. She keeps saying she should have recorded more. Should have seen it sooner. None of this is her fault, or yours. I know, but... Skylar's voice cracked. How did we not see what Mom really was? Because we loved her, I said simply. Love makes you blind to things you don't want to see. I don't think I can ever forgive her. You don't have to. Just don't let hate poison you. That's her specialty, not ours. After we hung up, I drove to the hospital, timing my arrival for an hour before Evelyn claimed she'd be there. The ICU was quiet, that particular hospital quiet that felt like held breath. Dad was awake, barely, his eyes tracking to me as I entered. "Henry." His voice was tissue paper thin. "Hey, Dad, how you feeling?" Like someone rearranged my insides with a sledgehammer. I pulled a chair close to his bed. "Dad, I need to ask you something. Do you remember exactly what Evelyn said to you before your heart attack?" His eyes sharpened despite the morphine haze. "She said you were dying, crushed by machinery at the yard, said you were calling for me. Did she say anything else? Anything about money or inheritance?" Dad's forehead creased with effort. "She mentioned something about making sure everything was in order, legal things. Said you'd want me to handle your affairs." My hands clenched into fists. She'd been setting up for a double play if Dad died from the shock. She'd get what she thought was an inheritance. If he survived, but I supposedly died, she'd use his grief to manipulate him into giving her access to accounts, maybe even signing things over for the grandchildren. "Dad, I need you to know something. Evelyn and Parker Brown are, I know." His hand found mine, grip weak but determined. "Skylar told me. Everything. That woman tried to kill me. We're going to make sure she pays for it." "Henry." Dad's eyes bore into mine. "Whatever you're planning, be careful. Desperate people do desperate things." "I'm being careful." "No, you're being methodical. There's a difference." He squeezed my hand. "Don't let revenge consume you." Those girls need their father whole. Before I could respond, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Evelyn appeared in the doorway, carrying a container of soup and wearing her best concerned face. She froze when she saw me. "Henry, I thought you were at work. Got off early. Wanted to see Dad." She recovered quickly, gliding into the room with practiced grace. "Leo, I brought your favorite, chicken noodle from Murray's." Dad's face went rigid. "Thank you, Evelyn. Very thoughtful." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Evelyn felt it. I could see it in the way her smile flickered. "Well, I should let you two talk," she said, setting the soup on the bedside table. "I have rounds to make." "Evelyn," Dad called as she turned to leave. She stopped but didn't turn around. "I remember everything you said that day." The silence stretched like pulled steel. Then she walked out without another word. "She knows," Dad said once her footsteps faded. "Good. Let her sweat." That evening I met with Axel Martinez at his office. He'd stayed late specifically for me, understanding the delicate nature of our situation. His office smelled like leather and old books, a sanctuary of legal precedent that felt like armor against Evelyn's chaos. "I've been reviewing everything," Axel said, spreading documents across his desk. "The 911 call records, the timeline Skylar provided, Genesis's recording. It's compelling, but not enough for attempted murder charges." "Correct. A prosecutor could argue she was in shock, made a bad judgment call. As a nurse, she has some cover. Medical professionals sometimes delay calling for help while assessing situations. Even when the patient is dying. Even then, it's thin, but it's enough for reasonable doubt." I slumped in my chair. "So she gets away with it." "With that, maybe, but the fraud is different." Axel pulled out another folder. "I've been working with Naomi Johnson. Parker Brown has no securities license, no legal authority to manage investments. That's fraud, plain and simple." "How much did they get from my mother?" $800,000. Your mother liquidated most of her retirement savings." The number hit me like a physical blow. Mom had worked 35 years as a teacher, saving every penny she could. That money was supposed to be her security, her freedom. "Can we get it back?" "Some of it, maybe. Depends on how much they've already spent. But Henry, there's something else." Axel's expression darkened. "I had a forensic accountant look into Parker's finances. He's in deep debt gambling, mostly. Owes some dangerous people money." "How dangerous?" "The kind who break legs for missed payments. He needed that money desperately." "Which makes him desperate now that we're on to him." "Exactly. You need to be careful. Both of them do desperate things when cornered. But Parker, he might be the more dangerous one right now." I thought about that as I drove home through the humid Virginia night. Evelyn was calculating, cold, willing to let my father die for money. But her evil was controlled, planned. Parker was desperate, in debt to violent people, which made him unpredictable. The house was dark when I got home. Evelyn's car was gone, another late shift that wasn't a shift. I went to my basement workshop, to Grandpa Joe's desk. Inside, beneath the false bottom I'd installed years ago, were the real documents, stock certificates, board meeting minutes, dividend statements, $3 billion in assets that Evelyn would have killed for, literally, if she'd known. I pulled out a yellow legal pad and started writing. Not a will, Axel had already handled that, but a letter to my daughters. Girls, if you're reading this, something's happened to me. First, know that I love you both more than any fortune, more than life itself. Second, Uncle Xavier and Aunt Maria know everything. Trust them. They have access to resources you'll need. Third, and this is important, your mother was not always the person she became. Or maybe she was, and I was too blind to see it. Either way, that's my failure, not yours. You carry nothing of her sins. Be brave, be honest, be better than we were. Love, Dad. I sealed it in an envelope and wrote Xavier's name on it. Tomorrow I'd give it to him, just in case. My phone buzzed. Skylar. Dad, Genesis remembered something about Mom and Parker. What kind of something? She overheard them talking last month before everything happened. They mentioned someone named Vincent, said they owed him money and he was getting impatient. Vincent. I wrote the name down. Did she hear anything else? Just that Parker said Vincent didn't accept excuses, only payments. After we hung up, I called Xavier. I need a favor, I said. Can you quietly check if any patients named Vincent have come through the ER recently, especially anyone with injuries consistent with collection work? That's a dangerous road, Primo. I know, but I need to know what we're dealing with. I'll see what I can find. But Henry, if these people are connected to organized crime, then we need to know that before they come looking for their money. The next morning, I woke to find Evelyn already gone. A note on the kitchen counter. Early meeting, home late. No signature, no love, just functional information between strangers who happen to share a house. I was welding a seam on the USS Delaware when my phone vibrated. Xavier. Found your Vincent Torino. Came through ER 6 months ago with 2 broken fingers. Said he caught them in a car door. But the break pattern was consistent with intentional trauma. Torture, basically. Jesus. There's more. He's known to Newport News PD, runs sports betting, loan sharking. The kind of guy who'd loan a desperate doctor money at 30% interest, then break things when payments are late. Parker's in deep with this guy? Based on what I'm seeing? About 300,000 deep. No wonder they'd targeted Mom. They needed that money to stay alive, literally. That afternoon, I called Naomi Johnson. I need everything you can find on Parker Brown's debts, I said, especially anything involving Vincent Torino. Torino? Henry, that's a dangerous name to be throwing around. I know, but it's part of this. Parker and Evelyn stole from my mother to pay off mob debts. That changes things. If we can prove the money went to organized crime, the FBI gets interested. This becomes bigger than just fraud. How long do you need? Give me 48 hours. And Henry, watch your back. Torino doesn't like people poking into his business. That evening, I parked across from Parker's apartment complex. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, evidence maybe, or just confirmation that my wife was there. The August heat made the air shimmer like water, distorting everything I saw. At 7:43, Evelyn's Camry pulled into the lot. She got out wearing scrubs, but her hair and makeup were too perfect for someone who'd just worked a shift. She practically skipped to Parker's door, knocking in what looked like a pattern, 2 quick, 3 slow. Parker opened the door, and even from across the street, I could see the tension in his shoulders. He pulled her inside quickly, scanning the parking lot before closing the door. They were scared. Good. I waited another hour, watching. At 9:15, a black Cadillac pulled up. 2 men got out, one huge, one wiry, both wearing suits despite the heat. They walked to Parker's door with the confidence of people who owned whatever space they occupied. The wiry one knocked loud, demanding. Parker opened the door, and even from my distance I could see him shrinking. The big man pushed past him, entering uninvited. The wiry one followed, closing the door behind them. 15 minutes later, they emerged. Parker stood in the doorway, holding his face. Even from across the street, I could see blood on his shirt. Evelyn appeared behind him, her perfect makeup smeared with tears. The men got in their Cadillac and drove away. I memorized the license plate, then left before Evelyn or Parker could spot me. That night, I lay in my empty bed. Evelyn hadn't come home and thought about what I'd seen. Parker owed dangerous people money. He and Evelyn had stolen from my mother to pay those debts. But $800,000 should have covered a $300,000 debt. Where was the rest? My phone rang at 2 a.m. Evelyn. Henry, I'm at the hospital. There's been an incident. What kind of incident? Parker was attacked. He's in the ER. I sat up. Is he okay? He'll live. Her voice was cold, controlled. But Henry, whoever did this left a message. What message? They said the down payment wasn't enough. They want the rest by Friday, or next time they won't stop at broken ribs. Down payment. So $800,000 hadn't covered the debt. It had barely made a dent. How much does he owe, Evelyn? Silence. Evelyn, how much? $2 million, she whispered. He owes them $2 million. The phone slipped from my numb fingers. $2 million. They'd stolen everything from my mother, and it wasn't even half of what they needed, which meant they'd be coming for more. And the only place left to get it was from me or my father. I picked up the phone. Evelyn, listen very carefully. You and Parker are in over your heads. These people will kill you both when they realize you can't pay. We'll figure something out. No, you won't. There's only one way this ends, and it's with you both in prison or dead. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You tried to kill my father for money that doesn't exist. You stole from my mother for a debt you can't pay. And now violent criminals are involved. It's over, Evelyn. If I go down, I'm taking you with me. Try it, I said, and hung up. I called Xavier immediately. I need you to check on Parker Brown in the ER, and put security on alert. The people who hurt him might come back. Already on it. Henry, this is escalating fast. I know. We need to move up our timeline. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it's time to end this. All of it. Before someone else gets hurt. I spent the rest of the night planning. By dawn, I had a strategy. It was risky, maybe even dangerous, but it would bring everything into the light. Evelyn and Parker had lit a fuse when they borrowed from Vincent Torino. Now that fuse was burning toward an explosion that would destroy them both. All I had to do was make sure my family was clear of the blast zone when it went off. Chapter 6. August in Virginia has a way of making people do crazy things. The heat presses down on you until your judgment cracks like drought-dried earth. But the weather had nothing to do with what Evelyn and Parker tried next. That was pure, calculated greed, dressed up as concern. It started on a Sunday, the kind of muggy afternoon where the air conditioning couldn't quite keep up. Mom had come over for dinner. We'd been having her over more since Dad's surgery, trying to keep her spirits up. She sat at our kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a glass of sweet tea, looking older than her 65 years. I've been thinking about finances, Evelyn said, appearing from the hallway like she'd been waiting for this moment, which, knowing what I know now, she probably had been. With Leo's medical bills and all. Mom looked up, worry creasing her face. The insurance is covering most of it. Most isn't all, Evelyn said, sliding into the chair next to Mom with practiced grace. And there'll be rehabilitation, medications, follow-up procedures. These things add up, Faith. I watched from the stove where I was stirring pasta sauce, keeping my expression neutral. Evelyn had been unusually helpful with dinner, insisting on making her famous garlic bread. Now I knew why. We have savings, Mom said, but doubt colored her voice. Of course you do. Evelyn patted Mom's hand. But savings sitting in a bank account aren't working for you. Not with inflation, the economy the way it is. You need your money to grow. Evelyn, I said, warning in my voice. What? I'm just trying to help. She turned those green eyes on me, innocent as a snake. Actually, Parker knows about these things. He's been incredibly successful with investments. The cardiologist? Mom asked. He's brilliant with money. Has this whole other side to him, studied finance before medicine. He's helped several of the nurses double their retirement funds. Lies flowed from her mouth smooth as honey. I gripped the wooden spoon hard enough to leave marks in my palm. I don't know, Mom said. I've never been one for risky investments. Oh, it's not risky at all. Evelyn pulled out her phone. Let me show you some of the returns he's gotten for people. She showed Mom a screen full of numbers fabricated, I'd learn later, completely made up. But they looked official, impressive. Mom's eyes widened. 30% returns. Conservative estimate. Some of his clients have seen 40, even 50%. Evelyn leaned in conspiratorially. Between you and me, I think he has some kind of inside track. Connections from his finance days. Insider trading is illegal, I said flatly. Not insider trading, Evelyn said quickly. Just expertise, knowledge of market patterns, completely legal. Mom looked between us, uncertain. Maybe I should talk to Leo about it first. Oh, we shouldn't bother him with this while he's recovering, Evelyn said. Besides, you know how men are about these things. Too conservative. They don't understand that sometimes you have to take calculated risks. The contempt in her voice when she said men made my teeth clench. I could ask Parker to come by, Evelyn continued, just to talk. No pressure. Well, Mom hesitated. What could it hurt to listen? Evelyn pressed. Information is free. And that's how it started. The trap, baited with false concern and imaginary profits. Parker came by 3 days later, on a Wednesday evening when he knew I'd be working late at the yard. Except I wasn't. I'd called in sick and parked down the street, watching through binoculars like some discount private detective. He arrived in his BMW leased, I'd discovered, and 3 payments behind. His suit was expensive, but if you looked close, you could see the wear at the cuffs, the slight shine that meant it had been dry cleaned too many times. Desperate people trying to look successful, it's a particular kind of pathetic. Through the window, I watched him spread papers across Mom's coffee table. Charts, graphs, glossy brochures for something called innovative medical investments. All bullshit, every page of it. Mom sat forward, interested despite herself. Parker had charm, I'll give him that. The silver hair, the confident gestures, the way he listened intently when Mom talked about her concerns for the future. A good con man makes you feel heard, understood. Makes you think they're doing you a favor by taking your money. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I could see Mom nodding, see her asking questions. Parker answered with enthusiasm, occasionally pulling out his phone to show her something. Evelyn sat beside Mom, playing the supportive daughter-in-law, occasionally touching her arm, reinforcing Parker's points. It went on for 2 hours. When Parker finally stood to leave, he handed Mom a folder paperwork, no doubt. Mom walked him to the door, and I saw him take her hands in both of his, sincere as a televangelist. Evelyn hugged Mom, and they stood in the doorway talking for another few minutes before Parker drove away. I waited until Evelyn's car pulled out 10 minutes later, then knocked on Mom's door. Henry? I thought you were working late. Got off early. Thought I'd check on you. She let me in, and I saw the folder on her coffee table immediately. Innovative medical investments embossed in gold on the cover. Might as well have said scam in neon letters. What's this? I asked, though I knew. Oh, Parker came by. Evelyn's friend? He had some interesting investment ideas. I sat down and opened the folder. The paperwork inside was elaborate pie charts showing astronomical growth, testimonials from satisfied clients, all fake, I'd bet, a prospectus full of medical and financial jargon designed to confuse rather than clarify. Mom, this is... I know what you're going to say, she interrupted. You think I'm being foolish? I think you're being targeted. Her face flushed. Parker is a respected doctor. He's trying to help. Help himself to your money. Henry Thompson, I am not senile. I can make my own financial decisions. Of course you can. But, Mom, did Parker show you his credentials? His license to manage investments? He's a doctor. That speaks to his credibility. Being a doctor doesn't qualify someone to manage money. It's like saying being a welder qualifies me to perform surgery. She was quiet for a moment. Then, the returns he showed me. Could be fabricated, probably are. You don't know that. I wanted to tell her everything then about the affair, about Dad's heart attack, about the violent men who'd broken Parker's ribs. But I couldn't, Not yet. Not without proof that would hold up in court. Just promise me you won't do anything without talking to a real financial advisor first, I said. Someone independent. I'll think about it. But I could see she was already hooked. The promise of easy money, of security, of not being a burden, it was everything a retired teacher on a fixed income wanted to hear. That night, Evelyn came home late, humming to herself. She looked satisfied, like a cat that had eaten a whole canary. "Good day?" I asked from the couch where I was pretending to watch TV. "Productive." She kicked off her shoes. "Your mom called. She's interested in Parker's investment opportunity." "Is she?" "Don't use that tone. We're trying to help her." "By stealing her retirement?" She froze, then turned slowly. "What did you say?" "You heard me. I don't know what you think you know. I know Parker owes $2 million to Vincent Torino. I know you stole from my mother to make a down payment on that debt. And I know Torino's not the kind of man who accepts partial payment." The color drained from her face. "You've been spying on us." "I've been protecting my family." "Your family?" She laughed, bitter and sharp. "When have you ever protected this family? You let us live in poverty while you—" She stopped herself. "While I what?" "Nothing. Forget it." "No, finish the thought." "While I what, Evelyn?" She stared at me, and for a moment I saw her calculating whether to show her cards. Then she shook her head. "You're delusional. Parker is offering a legitimate investment opportunity. Then he won't mind if I have my lawyer look at the paperwork." "You don't have a lawyer." "Actually, I do. Axel Martinez. We've been friends since high school." Something flickered in her eyes, fear, maybe, or recognition that I was several moves ahead of where she thought I was. "Stay out of this, Henry." "Or what? You'll try to kill me like you did my father?" The slap came fast, her palm cracking across my cheek hard enough to turn my head. We stood there, breathing hard, 20 years of marriage reduced to violence and accusations. "Get out," I said quietly. "This is my house too." "Not anymore. Get out, or I call the police and tell them about the fraud." "You have no proof." I pulled out my phone and played Genesis's recording Evelyn telling my father I was dying. Her voice filled the room, hysterical and false. "That proves nothing," she said, but her voice shook. "Maybe not. But it's enough to start an investigation. And investigations have a way of uncovering things, like affairs, like fraudulent investments, like connections to organized crime." She grabbed her purse and headed for the door, then turned back. "This isn't over." "No," I agreed. "It's just beginning." After she left, I called Mom. "Don't sign anything," I said without preamble. "Henry." "Mom, please, trust me. Don't sign anything from Parker. Don't give him any money." "You're being paranoid." "I'm being protective. Dad almost died, Mom." "I can't lose you too." That softened her. "I haven't signed anything yet." "Good. Can you give me the paperwork? Let me have someone look at it." "I suppose that would be prudent." "Thank you. I'll come by tomorrow to pick it up." The next day, I took the folder to Axel's office. He went through it page by page, his frown deepening with each document. "This is sophisticated," he said finally, "but it's complete fraud. The company doesn't exist except on paper. The returns they're showing are impossible without insider trading or outright fabrication. And this signature page, it's not just an investment agreement. It gives Parker power of attorney over the invested funds." "Meaning?" "Meaning once your mother signs and transfers the money, Parker can do whatever he wants with it. Transfer it offshore, spend it on groceries, pay off loan sharks." "Can we stop it?" "We can report it. But Henry, if they're desperate enough to do this, they're desperate enough to do worse." "I know." That evening, I met with Naomi Johnson at a coffee shop downtown. She'd been investigating Parker's history, and what she'd found was disturbing. "This isn't his first time," she said, sliding a folder across the table. "Different cities, different names on the companies, but the same pattern. He targets elderly people with medical connections, patients' families, usually. Promises huge returns, takes the money, disappears when it goes bad. How is he still practicing medicine? He's good at covering his tracks, and he never stays in one place long enough for consequences to catch up. What about the people he's scammed? Most are too embarrassed to report it, or they can't prove it was fraud rather than just a bad investment. But this time we can prove it. If we move carefully, yes. But Henry, there's something else. She pulled out another document. Parker's in deeper trouble than just Torino. He owes money to 3 different crews. Total debt is closer to $5 million. Jesus Christ. Whatever he and Evelyn are planning, it's not going to stop with your mother's $800,000. They need more, a lot more, and they need it fast. I thought about the $3 billion in assets Evelyn didn't know about. If she ever found out. We need to end this, I said. I agree, but we need to be smart about it. These people are cornered animals right now. That makes them dangerous. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the trajectory we were on, Evelyn and Parker getting more desperate, taking bigger risks, hurting more people. It had to stop. At 3 a.m., my phone rang. Mom. Henry? Someone's at my door. I was immediately awake. Don't answer it. They're knocking really hard. They're shouting about money. My blood went cold. Mom, go to your bedroom, lock the door, and call 911. I'm on my way. I drove like a madman, running every red light between my house and Mom's. I got there just as the police were arriving. 2 men were at Mom's door, not Torino's guys, but rough-looking types in cheap suits. They saw the cops and walked quickly to a van, driving away before anyone could stop them. Mom was safe, but shaken. They kept saying Parker owed them money, she told the officer. They said his investors better pay up. I looked at the officer. Dr. Parker Brown has been running an investment fraud. He owes money to dangerous people, and he's been targeting elderly victims to pay his debts. The officer took notes, said they'd investigate. After they left, I sat with Mom in her kitchen. I'm sorry, she said quietly. You tried to warn me. It's not your fault. They're professional manipulators. $800,000, Henry. I gave them $800,000. The number hit me like a sledgehammer. When? Yesterday. Parker said it was time-sensitive, that the investment opportunity would close if we didn't act fast. Evelyn drove me to the bank herself. I closed my eyes. They'd already taken it. The money was gone. We'll get it back, I said, though I wasn't sure we could. How could Evelyn do this? She's family. I don't know, Mom. I don't know who she is anymore. We sat in silence for a while, the weight of betrayal settling over us like dust. There's something else, Mom said finally. Parker asked about you. Whether you had any investments, any hidden assets, he seemed very interested in your finances. They were fishing, looking for the next score. What did you tell him? Nothing. I said you lived paycheck to paycheck like most welders. Good. But Henry, he didn't seem to believe me. He kept pressing, asking if maybe you'd inherited something from Grandpa Joe. They were getting closer to the truth, which meant this was about to get a lot more dangerous. Mom, I need you to stay with Maria in D.C. for a while. I'm not running from these people. You're not running. You're being strategic. Let me handle this. She studied my face. You know something. Something you're not telling me. I know enough. Trust me, Mom. Please. She nodded slowly. All right. But Henry, be careful. These people. They're not going to stop. Neither am I. As I drove home, I thought about the web Evelyn and Parker had spun: fraud, debt, dangerous criminals, all of it spiraling toward disaster. They'd crossed a line taking Mom's money. That wasn't just theft. It was a declaration of war. And they were about to learn that Henry Thompson, welder, father, and keeper of secrets, knew how to fight a war. Chapter 7. Genesis had always been the quiet one. Where Skylar was fire and defiance, Genesis was water flowing around obstacles, finding cracks, seeping into places nobody expected her to be. That's how she ended up witnessing the moment that changed everything. It was late August, one of those afternoons where the heat made the air thick as syrup. Genesis had come back to the house to grab her soccer gear. She was supposed to be at practice, but had forgotten her cleats. I'd given her my key since she was still staying with Maria, told her to be careful if her mother was home. She wasn't supposed to be there. Neither were Evelyn and Parker. Genesis told me the story later. her voice shaking with equal parts fear and fury. She'd entered through the back door, quiet out of habit from years of trying not to disturb her mother's headaches. The house seemed empty, but as she headed upstairs, she heard voices from my study, the one room Evelyn never used because it was too cluttered with ship blueprints and welding manuals. "They were laughing, Dad," Genesis told me, her dark eyes, my eyes blazing with hurt. "Laughing about how easy it was." She'd crept closer, her soccer socks silent on the hardwood floor. The door was cracked just enough to see inside. Parker sat at my desk with Evelyn's laptop open, while Evelyn stood behind him, her arms draped over his shoulders in casual intimacy. 800,000 just like that, Parker was saying, his voice giddy with relief. "Your mother-in-law didn't even ask for documentation." "I told you she trusts me," Evelyn replied, kissing the top of his head. The grieving daughter-in-law, so concerned about family finances. Genesis had pulled out her phone then, some instinct telling her to document this. The video she showed me later was shaky but clear enough. You could see the laptop screen showing a bank account, Parker's, with a deposit of exactly $800,000 dated that morning. "How much goes to Torino?" Evelyn asked in the video. "500. That'll buy us another month, maybe 2. "And the rest?" "Some to the other crews, some for us." He turned in the chair, pulling Evelyn onto his lap. "We deserve something for all this stress." "We deserve everything," Evelyn said, and the venom in her voice made my skin crawl even watching the recording. "After all the years I wasted on Henry, living like white trash while he—" She'd stopped herself, but Parker pressed. "While he what?" "Nothing. Just, I know there's money somewhere. His grandfather was loaded. It doesn't just disappear. Maybe it's in a trust. Maybe we need to look harder. Or maybe," Evelyn said, her voice dropping to something darker, "we need Henry out of the picture entirely. Widows have better access to family assets than ex-wives." That's when Genesis gasped. She couldn't help it. In the video, you can see Evelyn's head snap toward the door. "What was that?" "Probably nothing," Parker said, but Evelyn was already moving. Genesis ran, down the hallway, down the stairs, her cleats forgotten. She could hear Parker behind her, cursing, his dress shoes slipping on the hardwood. She burst through the back door and into the yard, muscle memory from years of soccer practice taking over. "I've never run that fast in my life," she told me. "I could hear him behind me, getting closer. He kept yelling for me to stop, that he just wanted to talk." She'd vaulted over the Hendersons' fence, the neighbors we'd had barbecues with for a decade, and pounded on their back door. Mrs. Henderson answered, took one look at Genesis's terrified face, and pulled her inside. "Call my dad," Genesis had gasped. "Please, call my dad." By the time I got there, Parker was long gone. Genesis sat in the Hendersons' kitchen, clutching a mug of hot chocolate despite the August heat, her hands shaking. Mrs. Henderson, God bless her, had locked all the doors and sat with my daughter like a mother bear protecting a cub. "Did they hurt you?" was my first question. "No, but Dad, they were talking about hurting you, about making you have an accident." I pulled her into my arms, feeling her shake against my chest. My baby girl, 14 years old, carrying the weight of her mother's evil. "You did good, sweetheart. You did so good." I got it on video. Them with the money, talking about their debts, about getting rid of you. "Can I see it?" She showed me on her phone. 2 minutes and 37 seconds that would change everything. Clear video of Parker and Evelyn with the stolen money, discussing their debts to criminals, and most damning Evelyn suggesting my murder as a financial strategy. "We need to get this to the police," I said. "Will Mom go to jail?" I looked at my daughter, saw the war in her eyes between love and justice. "Probably, baby. Is that okay with you?" "She was going to hurt you, maybe kill you." Genesis's voice hardened. "That's not my mom anymore. Maybe it never was." That night, I called an emergency meeting. Xavier, Axel, Naomi, and both my daughters Skylar had driven down from D.C. the moment she heard. We gathered at Axel's office, doors locked, blinds drawn. "This changes everything," Axel said after watching the video. This is conspiracy to commit murder, on top of the fraud. Is it enough? I asked. Combined with everything else? More than enough. But we need to move fast. If they know Genesis saw them, they'll run, Naomi finished. Or worse, they'll accelerate whatever they're planning for Henry. I'm not worried about me, I said. Well, you should be, Xavier cut in. These people are desperate. Desperate people do desperate things. So what's the plan? Skylar asked, her jaw set with determination. Axel pulled out a legal pad. We take this to the police tonight. With Genesis's video, the financial records Naomi's gathered, and the evidence of Parker's debts to organized crime, they'll have to act. What about Mom's money? Skylar asked. Frozen, hopefully. If we move fast enough, we might recover some of it. And Evelyn and Parker? Arrested, tonight if we're lucky. But luck wasn't on our side. By the time the police got to Parker's apartment, they were gone. His neighbor said they'd left in a hurry, throwing suitcases into Evelyn's car. The laptop was gone, along with any physical evidence that might have been there. They were in the wind. They can't have gone far, the detective assured me. We've put out a bolo. Every cop in Virginia is looking for them. But I knew Evelyn better than that. She was smart, calculating. She'd have a plan. That plan revealed itself at 2 a.m. when my phone rang. Hello, Henry. Evelyn's voice was calm, controlled. Where are you? That doesn't matter. What matters is what happens next. What happens next is you go to prison. She laughed, cold and bitter. I don't think so. See, Parker and I have been doing some research about your grandfather, about Newport News shipbuilding, about certain shareholdings that were never disclosed. My blood turned to ice. I don't know what you're talking about. 40%, Henry. You own 40% of the shipyard. Worth what, $3 billion? Maybe more? You're delusional. Am I? Parker's very thorough. Amazing what you can find in public records if you know where to look. Old SEC filings, estate transfers, corporate minutes from the 1960s. She'd found it. Somehow they'd found it. So what? I said, trying to keep my voice steady. It doesn't change anything. It changes everything. You hid assets during our marriage. That's fraud, Henry. I could take half of everything in the divorce. More, maybe, given the deception. You tried to murder my father. You stole from my mother. You're talking about killing me on video. Alleged. All alleged. And my lawyer will argue that I was driven to desperation by your financial abuse, hiding billions while your family lived in poverty. A jury will sympathize. You're insane. I'm practical. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to wire $5 million to an account I'll provide. Parker pays his debts, we disappear, and you never hear from us again. Or we go public with your secret. Every newspaper in Virginia will run the story, billionaire welder hides fortune while family struggles. Your daughters will be hounded by media, by gold diggers, by everyone who wants a piece. Their normal lives? Over. You'd do that to your own children? They chose you. Let them live with the consequences. I need time to think. You have 24 hours, then things get unpleasant. She hung up, leaving me standing in my dark kitchen, the weight of my secret finally crushing down. I called Axel immediately. She knows, I said without preamble. About the shares? Everything. She wants $5 million to disappear. That's extortion. Can we prove it? Did you record the call? No, didn't have time. Then it's her word against yours. What do I do? We set a trap. Agree to meet, get her on recording making the demand, then the police move in. And if she's too smart for that, then we go to war. Full disclosure of everything. But Henry, if this goes public, I know. Everything changes. The next morning I called my daughters together. They deserve to know the truth before it came out another way. There's something I need to tell you, I began, and then laid it all out. The inheritance, the billions, why I'd kept it secret. Skylar was the first to speak. You're telling us we're billionaires? Technically, yes. And you kept this from us because I wanted you to grow up normal. To understand the value of work, of earning things. And because you didn't trust Mom, Genesis added quietly. That too. They sat in silence, processing. This doesn't change anything, Skylar finally said. You're still our dad. You still built ships with your hands. The money, it's just numbers. Mom doesn't see it that way, Genesis said. No, she wants $5 million to disappear. Are you going to pay her? I don't know yet, but I did know. I wasn't going to let Evelyn blackmail me. Not with my father still recovering, my mother's life savings stolen, and my daughter's futures at stake. That evening, I met with the detective handling the case. We have a proposition from the suspects, I told him. They want money to disappear. That's extortion. Did you record it? No, but I can get them to repeat it, set up a meeting. That's dangerous. Everything about this is dangerous, but it's our best shot at ending it. We spent the next hours planning. I'd agree to Evelyn's demands, arrange a meeting to transfer the money. The police would be there, hidden, ready to move in once the extortion was clear. I called Evelyn that night. $5 million, I said. But I need guarantees. What kind of guarantees? That you'll really disappear. That you'll sign away all claims to anything else. Fine. And I want to do this in person. I want to see you leave. There was a pause. Where? The shipyard, after hours, after. Public enough that you'll feel safe, private enough to do business. When? Tomorrow night, midnight. If this is a trap, it's not. I just want this over. So do I. After we hung up, I sat in my empty house thinking about how we'd gotten here. 20 years of marriage reduced to extortion and theft. The woman I'd loved become someone capable of murder for money. Tomorrow night it would end, one way or another. But first, I had one more card to play. I called Vincent Torino. Chapter 8. The Newport News shipyard at night is a different world. During the day, it's all noise and sparks, 20,000 people building monuments to American naval power. But after the last shift ends, it becomes a graveyard of steel giants, silent except for the James River lapping against the hulls. I stood at the entrance to Dry Dock 12, watching the security cameras I'd helped install 5 years ago. In 6 hours, Evelyn and Parker would walk into this place thinking they were about to become millionaires. They had no idea what was really waiting for them. You sure about this? Xavier asked, standing beside me in the shadows. He'd insisted on being here for the setup, said he wasn't letting me face this alone. Sure as I can be about anything these days. And Torino, you trust him to play his part? I don't trust him at all, but I trust his greed. Parker owes him $2 million. If he thinks he can collect, he'll show up. The plan was dangerous, maybe stupid, but it was the only way to end everything at once, the extortion, the fraud, the threats. Everyone who'd turned my life into a war zone would be in one place, and the police would be watching. My phone buzzed. Detective Morrison, the lead investigator on the case. We're in position, he said. Unmarked units at all exits. SWAT on standby. You sure they'll show? They'll show. They need the money too badly to stay away. And you're clear on the signal? When I say it's time for truth, you move in. Copy that, Thompson. Be careful. Desperate people do desperate things. Yeah, I've heard. After he hung up, I walked through the shipyard one more time. Past the submarines in various stages of construction, past the carrier that would launch next spring. My grandfather had helped build this place into what it was. My father had given his career to it. I'd given my sweat and blood, and I owned 40% of it, though nobody here knew that. Tomorrow, everyone would know. Axel had prepared the paperwork, a fake transfer document for $5 million, convincing enough to pass casual inspection but legally worthless. If Evelyn and Parker took it and ran, they'd discover the truth too late. But I didn't think they'd get that far. At home, I found Skylar and Genesis waiting. They were supposed to be at Maria's in D.C., safe and far away. What are you doing here? We're not letting you face this alone, Skylar said, chin raised in defiance. Absolutely not. This is dangerous. Everything's been dangerous, Genesis interrupted. But we're still here. We're still a family. Your mother is not our mother anymore, Genesis said flatly. She lost that right when she tried to hurt Grandpa, when she talked about killing you. I pulled them both into a hug, feeling their strength flow into me. You can't be at the shipyard, it's too dangerous. Then we'll wait nearby with Uncle Xavier, we need to know you're okay. I couldn't argue with that. Truth was, I needed them too. Needed to remember what I was fighting for. That evening, I prepared carefully. Dark clothes that wouldn't show up well on camera if things went sideways. The fake transfer documents in a briefcase, a recording device in my pocket, backup for the police surveillance, and in my jacket, the real surprise documents Axel had drawn up: divorce papers, custody agreements, criminal complaints. Everything needed to end this legally, assuming we all survived the night. At 11 p.m., I drove to the shipyard. The security guard waved me through. I'd called ahead, said I needed to check on a welding project. He didn't question it. Henry Thompson was known for his dedication, for working odd hours when a job needed finishing. The meeting spot was perfect Dry Dock 12, where the USS Delaware was getting final touches, open enough that nobody could sneak up, and closed enough that voices would carry to the recording devices. The police were already in position, invisible in the darkness beyond the floodlights. At 11:45, headlights swept across the concrete. Evelyn's Camry, driving slow and careful. They parked 50 feet away, engine still running, smart, ready to bolt if needed. Evelyn got out first, dressed in black like she was attending a funeral. Maybe she was. Parker followed, nervous, sweating despite the cool night air. He kept looking around, jumpy as a spooked cat. "Henry," Evelyn said, walking closer but staying out of arm's reach. "You came alone?" That was the deal. "Show me the money." I held up the briefcase. "Show me the guarantee. Your signature on documents releasing all claims." She pulled out papers. Even from a distance, I could see Axel's watermark. She'd stolen legal documents from his office, probably during one of her visits to discuss divorce. But these were the decoys he'd left for her to find, legally meaningless. "5 million, she said. "Then we disappear forever." "That's extortion," I said clearly, making sure the recording caught it. "It's negotiation. You hid assets during our marriage. I could take you for billions in court. You tried to murder my father. Prove it. You stole from my mother. Her word against mine. You're on video discussing my murder. Taken out of context by a confused teenager." She had an answer for everything, but that was okay. I just needed her to keep talking. "Why?" I asked. Why wasn't what we had enough? For the first time, real emotion flickered across her face. Because what we had was a lie. You pretended to be something you weren't. I was exactly who I said I was. A welder, a father, a husband. A husband who let his wife struggle while sitting on billions. I never let you struggle. We had everything we needed. Needed isn't enough. Her composure cracked. Do you know what it's like watching other women live the life you deserve? Seeing them with their jewelry, their cars, their vacations while you're clipping coupons and shopping sales? That's what this is about? Jealousy? It's about fairness. I gave you 20 years, Henry. 20 years of my life, and you gave me nothing. I gave you love. I gave you daughters. I gave you a home. You gave me scraps while hoarding a feast. Parker shifted nervously. Evelyn, we should... Shut up, she snapped. Then to me, the money, now. First, I need to know something. Oh, was any of it real? Did you ever actually love me? She was quiet for a long moment. I loved who I thought you were. Young, ambitious, going places. Then you settled for being a welder, and I realized I'd bet on the wrong horse. So you found a new horse. Parker appreciates me. He sees my worth. Parker's using you. When the money runs out, so will he. You don't know anything about us. I know he owes $5 million to violent criminals. I know he's scammed elderly people in 3 different states. I know he's one bad day away from a shallow grave. Parker stepped forward. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? I pulled out my phone, showed them a photo. Vincent Torino, runs loan sharking and sports betting. You owe him $2 million. The Calabrese crew from Norfolk, another $1.5 million. The Russians in Richmond, another $1 million plus interest. Parker's face went white. How do you? I protect my family. That means knowing who threatens them. We're not threatening anyone, Evelyn said, but her voice wavered. You talked about killing me. On video. That's a threat. It was just talk. Talk that becomes action when desperate people run out of options. Headlights suddenly flooded the dry dock. 3 black SUVs rolled in, surrounding us. Not police cars. Vincent Torino stepped out of the lead vehicle, flanked by two mountains of muscle. "Well, well," Torino said, voice like gravel in a cement mixer. "Dr. Brown, Mrs. Thompson, fancy meeting you here." Parker actually whimpered. Evelyn grabbed his arm, whether to steady him or herself, I couldn't tell. "Vincent," Parker stammered, "this isn't what it looks like. Looks like you're about to get $5 million. My $5 million. $2 million. You're owed $2 million. Was $2 million. Interest is a bitch, Doc, plus penalties for making me track you down. This wasn't part of the plan. Torino was supposed to wait until after the police moved in. But criminals don't follow scripts." "The money's not here yet," I said, trying to salvage the situation. Torino looked at me, and I saw recognition in his eyes. "You're the husband. The welder." "That's right. Heard about you. Heard you're smarter than you look. I have my moments. Also heard you're worth more than you let on." Evelyn's eyes widened. "You know? Lady, everyone knows. You think you're the only one who can read public records? Your husband owns half the shipyard, worth billions." "Then why?" Parker started. "Why let you live this long?" Torino smiled, showing gold teeth. "Because I'm a businessman. Dead men don't pay debts. But now that everyone's cards are on the table..." He pulled out a gun. "Wait," I said. "There's another way. I'm listening. The police are already here, watching. You shoot anyone, you're not leaving." Torino laughed. "You're bluffing. Look at the crane. Third crossbeam from the left. See the glint?" He looked. Sure enough, a sniper scope caught the light. "Son of a bitch. Put the gun down, Vincent. This doesn't have to end badly." "For who? I'm not leaving empty-handed." "You're not leaving at all." Detective Morrison's voice boomed through a megaphone. "This is the Newport News Police. You're surrounded. Weapons down, hands up." Floodlights blazed to life, turning night into day. Police emerged from everywhere behind containers, from buildings, some rappelling down from the crane itself. Torino's men reached for weapons but thought better of it as red laser dots appeared on their chests. "It's time for truth," I said clearly. That was the signal. Police swarmed in, efficient and overwhelming. Torino and his men were on the ground in seconds. Parker collapsed to his knees, hands already behind his head. But Evelyn ran. She sprinted toward the dock's edge where the Delaware sat in its cradle. I don't know what she thought she'd accomplish. There was nowhere to go. But desperation makes people stupid. "Stop!" Morrison shouted. She didn't stop. She reached the edge, looked down at the 40-foot drop to concrete, then back at the approaching officers. "Evelyn, don't!" I shouted, sudden fear replacing my anger. Despite everything, I didn't want her dead. She looked at me across the distance, and for a moment, I saw the girl I'd fallen in love with 20 years ago. Young, scared, making a terrible decision. Then she jumped. The splash echoed through the dry dock. But there was no water in Dry Dock 12. It had been drained for the submarine work. I ran to the edge, looked down. Evelyn lay on the concrete, her leg bent at an impossible angle, conscious but screaming. The police were already rappelling down to her. "Get medical!" Morrison shouted into his radio. "Now!" As the chaos swirled around me, criminals arrested, ambulance sirens approaching, police taking statements, I stood at the edge of that dry dock and felt empty. Not satisfied, not vindicated, just empty. Xavier appeared beside me. "You okay?" She jumped. She'd rather jump than face justice. She'll face it anyway, just from a hospital bed first. "The girls?" "Safe. Watching from the security office with Maria." I nodded, suddenly exhausted. It was over. All of it. But Xavier was studying the scene below. "Henry, that fall. It's survivable, but only if you know how to land." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe she knew exactly what she was doing, injured badly enough to delay prosecution, maybe gain sympathy, but not badly enough to die." I looked down at Evelyn being strapped to a stretcher. Even now, even broken, she was calculating. "Mr. Thompson," Detective Morrison approached. "We need your statement." "Of course. You did good tonight. Dangerous, but good. Did we get enough? Between the extortion attempt, the fraud evidence, and now Torino's crew, everyone's going away for a long time." "What about my mother's money?" "Frozen and recovered. Most of it, anyway. Some had already been transferred to pay debts, but we're tracking that down. And the girls? Custody? Given everything, I don't see any judge granting Evelyn anything but supervised visits, if that. I nodded, relief finally starting to seep in. As I gave my statement, I could see the Delaware looming behind us. In a few months, she'd slide into the James River and begin her service protecting America. She'd been built by thousands of hands, including mine. Every weld, every beam, every bolt placed with precision and purpose. My marriage had been built the same way, or so I'd thought. But somewhere along the way, the welds had failed, the metal had fatigued, and the whole structure had collapsed. Now it was time to rebuild. Not with Evelyn, that ship had literally jumped off the dock, but with my daughters, my parents, my real family. The sun was starting to rise over the James River as I finally left the shipyard. Skylar and Genesis were waiting by my truck, Maria hovering protectively nearby. "Is it over?" Genesis asked. "Yeah, baby. It's over." "Is Mom?" "She'll live. She'll go to prison, but she'll live." Skylar nodded, her face hard to read. "Good. I mean, not good, but good she's alive. Do you want to see her when she's recovered?" They looked at each other, having one of those silent conversations siblings do. "Maybe," Genesis said. "Someday, but not now." "That's okay. You don't have to decide anything now." We drove home as the sun painted the sky orange and pink. The house felt different knowing Evelyn would never walk through that door again. Emptier but somehow cleaner, like windows had been opened after a long winter. "Dad," Skylar said as we pulled into the driveway, "what happens now? With the money, I mean. Everyone knows about it." She was right. By tomorrow, the news would be everywhere. Billionaire welder exposes wife's murder plot. Our quiet life was over. "Now we learn to live with truth instead of secrets," I said. "All of us, together." "That sounds hard," Genesis said. "Yeah," I admitted, "but not as hard as living with lies." We went inside and I made breakfast while the girls called their grandparents to let them know everyone was safe. The morning news was already covering the arrests, though they hadn't connected all the dots yet. My phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. "Mr. Thompson? This is James Chen from the Wall Street Journal. I'd like to talk to you about your ownership stake in Huntington Ingalls Industries." I hung up. It was starting already, but that was tomorrow's problem. Today, I had my daughters safe, my parents recovering, and the truth finally in the light. The storm had passed. Time to rebuild. Chapter 9. The Newport News courthouse looked different in the harsh September sun than it had during my divorce proceedings 20 years ago. Back then, I'd walked in young and hopeful, ready to pledge my life to Evelyn. Now I walked in weathered and wary, ready to watch her answer for trying to destroy everything we'd built. 3 weeks had passed since that night at the shipyard. 3 weeks of lawyers, depositions, and reporters camping outside my house like vultures waiting for carrion. The story had exploded across Virginia. Billionaire welder's wife attempts murder for money. Every detail of our lives picked apart, examined, judged by strangers who didn't know the weight of 20 years of love turned poison. "Dad, you ready for this?" Skylar asked, squeezing my hand as we climbed the courthouse steps. She'd driven down from D.C., where she was starting her sophomore year at Georgetown. The last months had aged her, carved new lines of wisdom around her eyes that no 19-year-old should have. "Ready as I'll ever be, sweetheart." Genesis flanked my other side, quiet but solid. At 15, she'd become my anchor, the one who reminded me why we were doing this not for revenge, but for justice, for closure. The courtroom was packed. I recognized faces from the shipyard, neighbors, even some of Evelyn's former nursing colleagues. They all wanted to witness the final act of our tragedy. Evelyn sat at the defendant's table, her legs still in a cast from her jump at the dry dock. She'd lost weight, her designer clothes replaced with a conservative gray suit that couldn't hide how diminished she looked. Parker sat separately, his own lawyer maintaining distance. The United Front had crumbled the moment handcuffs clicked on their wrists. "All rise," the bailiff called, the Honorable Judge Patricia Williams presiding. Judge Williams was known for being fair but tough, a former prosecutor who didn't suffer fools or sob stories. She reviewed the charges with clinical precision, Attempted murder, fraud, conspiracy, extortion. Each word landed like a hammer blow. How do the defendants plead? Parker's lawyer stood first. Your Honor, Dr. Brown wishes to enter a guilty plea to fraud and conspiracy charges in exchange for testimony against Mrs. Thompson. The betrayal was instant and absolute. Evelyn's head snapped toward Parker, her face a mask of disbelief that quickly morphed into rage. You bastard! She hissed, loud enough for the gallery to hear. This was your idea! Your debts! Mrs. Thompson, control your client, Judge Williams warned. But Evelyn was past control. 20 years of carefully maintained composure shattered like cheap glass. He seduced me, promised me everything, said we deserved better than what, Mrs. Thompson? The prosecutor interrupted smoothly. Better than a devoted husband? Better than healthy daughters? Better than a comfortable life? Evelyn's mouth opened and closed like a landed fish. Her lawyer whispered urgently in her ear, but she shoved him away. You want the truth? She stood, favoring her injured leg, and looked directly at me for the first time since the arrest. The truth is, I wasted 20 years on a man who could have given me the world but chose to play in the dirt instead. The defendant will sit down, Judge Williams ordered. I gave him everything, Evelyn continued, her voice rising. My youth, my beauty, my potential, and what did I get? A tract house and calloused hands on my skin. Do you know what it's like to watch other women live your dreams while you clip coupons? What I know, I said, standing despite my lawyer's attempt to stop me, is that you had a husband who loved you, daughters who adored you, and a life that millions would envy, but it wasn't enough because you couldn't see past your own reflection. The judge banged her gavel. Mr. Thompson, sit down. Mrs. Thompson, one more outburst and you'll be held in contempt. The rest of the hearing was clinical. Evidence presented, testimonies read. Parker, true to his plea deal, laid out everything how Evelyn had researched my family's finances, how she'd planned the call to trigger Dad's heart attack, how they'd targeted Mom's retirement savings. She said Henry's family was sitting on millions, Parker testified, not meeting anyone's eyes. Said if we could get the old man out of the way, Henry would inherit, and she'd get half in the divorce. And when that failed, she suggested more direct methods. Said accidents happen at shipyards all the time. Genesis gripped my hand so tight I thought bones might break. I could feel her trembling, hearing her mother's evil confirmed in stark legal terms. When Evelyn finally took the stand, her story had changed. Now she was the victim, emotionally abused, financially controlled, driven to desperation by my neglect. He hid billions from me, she said, tears streaming down her face. Made me live like a pauper while he sat on a fortune. What kind of man does that to his wife? The kind who wanted to be loved for himself, I thought, but didn't say. The prosecutor destroyed her testimony methodically. The recording Genesis had made played through the courtroom speakers, Evelyn laughing about stealing Mom's money, discussing my potential murder like it was a grocery list. I was confused, Evelyn stammered. Under Parker's influence, he manipulated me like you manipulated your father-in-law, your mother-in-law, your own daughters? By the time it was over, Evelyn's fabricated victim narrative lay in ruins. The judge's verdict was swift and merciless. Evelyn Thompson, this court finds sufficient evidence to proceed with trials on all charges. Bail is denied given flight risk and danger to the victims. As they led her away, Evelyn turned one last time. Our eyes met across the courtroom, and for just a moment I saw the girl I'd fallen in love with at that barbecue 22 years ago. Young, ambitious, hungry for more than life had given her. I loved you once, she mouthed silently. I know, I mouthed back. So did I. Then she was gone, swallowed by the system that would eventually sentence her to 25 years. Outside the courthouse, the September heat hit like a physical force. Reporters swarmed, but Xavier and my shipyard buddies formed a protective wall, getting us to the car. You okay, Dad? Schuyler asked as we drove away. I will be, I said, and meant it. We all will be. That night we had dinner at Mom and Dad's. Dad was still weak but improving, the color returning to his cheeks. Mom had made her famous pot roast, the one that had welcomed Evelyn into our family all those years ago. "It's over," Dad said, raising his glass of apple cider. "To new beginnings." "To family," Mom added. "To truth," Skylar said. "To justice," Genesis whispered. "To survival," I finished. We clinked glasses, and for the first time in months, I felt something besides anger or grief. Hope, maybe, or just the absence of fear. Later, as I sat on my parents' porch watching the sun set over the James River, Genesis came and sat beside me. "Do you think Mom ever really loved us?" she asked. I pulled her close, feeling the weight of the question. "I think she loved us the only way she knew how. It just wasn't enough." "Will we be okay without her?" "We already are, baby, we already are." Chapter 10. The trial itself was almost anticlimactic after that first hearing. October arrived with unusual cold, frost painting the shipyard cranes like nature's own artwork. I threw myself into work, welding seams on the USS Enterprise while lawyers prepared for the final showdown. Parker had sung like a canary with its tail on fire. His testimony revealed layers of deception I hadn't even suspected. Evelyn had been planning this for over 2 years, long before I'd noticed the first cracks in our marriage. She kept journals, the prosecutor, a sharp woman named Sandra Rodriguez, told me during trial prep. Detailed plans, research on your family's assets, even contingencies for different scenarios. Can I see them? Are you sure you want to? I wasn't, but I needed to. The journals were evidence now. Evelyn's neat handwriting documenting her transformation from disappointed wife to would-be killer. March 3, 2018. Henry's grandfather owned shipyard shares. Need to research how much he inherited. June 15, 2018. Parker says his investment fund could launder money easily. Perfect for when we get H's inheritance. December 2, 2019. Leo's heart condition getting worse. Could be opportunity. Research stress triggers for cardiac events. February 10, 2020. Practiced crying in mirror for when I need to play grieving daughter-in-law. Getting better at it. Each entry was a knife twist, but the one that broke me was simpler. August 5, 2017. H made me another wooden gift. When will he understand I need more than his working-class trinkets? That was our anniversary. I'd spent 3 months crafting a hope chest from reclaimed wood, each joint perfect. She'd smiled and kissed me, said it was beautiful. All lies. The trial lasted 2 weeks. 2 weeks of evidence, testimony, and Evelyn's increasingly desperate attempts to shift blame. She fired her first lawyer, then her second, finally representing herself in a move that even I could see was stupid. "I was a battered woman," she declared during her closing statement, standing awkwardly with her cane. "Emotionally abused by a man who hid billions while making me live in poverty." The prosecutor's response was surgical. Mrs. Thompson owned a 3-bedroom house, 2 cars, had no debt, and never wanted for necessities. If that's poverty, most of America would gladly trade places. The jury deliberated for exactly 3 hours and 47 minutes. I know because I counted every second, sitting in the hallway with Mom, Dad, and the girls. Guilty on all counts. The words echoed through the courtroom. Evelyn swayed but didn't fall. She looked at me one last time and there was nothing in her eyes. No hate, no love, no regret. Just emptiness. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. Judge Williams didn't mince words. "Mrs. Thompson, you betrayed every sacred trust. As a wife, a mother, a nurse. You attempted to murder a man whose only crime was loving his son. You stole from a woman who welcomed you as family. You traumatized your own children for money. This court sentences you to 25 years in prison." The gavel fell like thunder. Parker got 20 years, his cooperation buying him slightly less time. He'd be eligible for parole in 12 if he behaved. Evelyn wouldn't see freedom for at least 18 years. The girls would be in their 30s, maybe with families of their own, before their mother could contact them again. As they led Evelyn away, she didn't look back. Her orange jumpsuit made her look pale, washed out, like a photograph left too long in the sun. Outside the courthouse, the circus began immediately. Reporters shouted questions about the money, about how it felt to be a secret billionaire, about whether I'd remarry. "Mr. Thompson, will you continue working at the shipyard?" I stopped at that one, turned to the young reporter who'd asked it. Every morning until I retire. It's honest work, and I'm proud of it. But why? You don't need the money. Nobody needs $3 billion, I said. But everybody needs purpose. Mine is building ships that protect this country. That hasn't changed just because my bank account has. That night, I found Skylar and Genesis in Evelyn's old craft room, going through boxes. What are you doing? Deciding what to keep, Skylar said, holding up a photo from her 5th birthday. Evelyn was smiling, holding a homemade cake, looking every inch the perfect mother. Was any of it real? Genesis asked. The cake was real, I said. You ate 3 pieces and threw up on the carpet. That got a small laugh. We spent the next hours going through 20 years of memories, sorting real from fake, keeping what mattered, letting go of what didn't. Genesis kept one photo, all 4 of us at the beach when she was 7. We looked happy. Maybe we even were for that moment. To remember that she wasn't always a monster, she explained. Skylar chose differently. She kept nothing. I don't need pictures to remember the good times, and I don't want reminders of the bad. 2 different ways of processing the same trauma, both valid, both theirs to choose. A week later, a letter arrived from the prison. Evelyn's handwriting on the envelope made my stomach clench. Inside, 10 pages of justification, accusation, and self-pity. She blamed Parker, me, her parents for dying and leaving her without support, society for making her want more. Only one line stood out. Tell the girls I'm sorry I wasn't the mother they deserved. I showed it to them. Let them decide what to do with it. Genesis read it once and handed it back. Too little, too late. Skylar didn't even open it. I've heard enough from her. We burned it in the backyard fire pit, watching the smoke carry away the last of Evelyn's words. The girls made s'mores over the flames, laughing when Genesis dropped her marshmallow in the ashes. Dad, Skylar said suddenly, are you going to be okay? Really okay? I thought about it, really thought about it. The woman I'd loved had tried to destroy everything I cared about, but she'd failed. My father lived. My mother's money was mostly recovered. My daughters were strong and whole. Yeah, I said, meaning it. I think I am. Good, Genesis said, 'cause we need you to teach us how to manage $3 billion. I don't even know how many zeros that is. 10, Skylar said automatically. It's 10 zeros. That's a lot of zeros. That's a lot of responsibility, I corrected. Which is why we're going to be smart about it, starting with trust funds for your education and financial literacy classes for all of us. Can we at least get a better TV? Genesis asked hopefully. I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. Yeah, baby, we can get a better TV. Mom called then, inviting us for Sunday dinner. Normal, routine, family, the things Evelyn had tried to destroy but couldn't. We'll be there, I promised. As we sat around the fire, 3 Thompson survivors instead of 4, I realized something. Evelyn had been wrong about me. I hadn't hidden the money out of cruelty or control. I'd hidden it because I knew somehow that it would become a test. And she'd failed that test spectacularly. But we'd passed. We'd survived betrayal, attempted murder, public humiliation, and came out stronger. The money hadn't saved us, we'd saved ourselves. Love you, Dad, Genesis said sleepily, leaning against my shoulder. Love you too, Skylar added from my other side. Love you both more than all the money in the world, I said, and meant every word. Chapter 11. Christmas 2020 came to Newport News with an unusual snowfall, 6 inches that turned the shipyard into something from a fairy tale. I stood at my welding station, watching snowflakes drift past the submarine's hull, thinking about how different this holiday would be. No Evelyn pretending to enjoy my homemade gifts, no tension over money for presents, no lies wrapped in shiny paper and false smiles. Thompson! Mike, my supervisor, called out. Corporate wants to see you. I'd been expecting this. Word had gotten out about my ownership stake. The other welders looked at me differently now, not with resentment, surprisingly, but with a kind of confused respect. The executive suite smelled like leather and old money. CEO Jennifer Walsh sat behind a desk that cost more than most people's cars. Mr. Thompson. Or should I say our second largest individual shareholder. Henry's fine, she smiled. Henry, then, we need to discuss your position here. I'm a welder, Bay 12, been doing it for 20 years. You own 40% of this company. Doesn't make me any better with a welding torch. She studied me for a long moment. You really intend to keep working the floor? Every day until I retire, though I've been thinking about setting up a foundation. College scholarships for shipyard workers' kids, maybe? That's unexpected. My daughter wants to be a doctor because of what happened to her grandfather. How many other kids have dreams they can't afford? This place gave me purpose for 20 years, time I gave back. We talked for an hour. By the end, we'd outlined the Thompson Family Foundation, with Jennifer's help navigating the corporate structure. First recipients would be announced in spring. I left through the main entrance instead of the workers' gate, a small rebellion against the box people wanted to put me in. Rich or poor, I was still Henry Thompson, welder. At home, I found Genesis teaching Mom how to video call on her new tablet. Dad sat nearby, pretending to read but really watching them with a soft smile. His recovery had been remarkable. The doctor said his determination to see justice done had pulled him through. "Henry!" Mom called out. "Look, I can see Skylar at college." Sure enough, there was Skylar on the screen in her dorm room with textbooks piled everywhere. "Hey, Dad, guess what? I got into the pre-med program." "That's amazing, sweetheart. I want to be a cardiologist, save people like Grandpa." I thought about Evelyn, how she'd laugh at the irony her betrayal inspiring our daughter to become everything she'd pretended to admire in Parker. That evening, a familiar face appeared at my door. Marina Rodriguez, engineering manager from the shipyard. We'd known each other for years, but she'd kept her distance during the trial, respecting my need for space. "Heard you had an interesting meeting with Walsh," she said, holding up a six-pack of beer. "News travels fast. It's a shipyard. Gossip moves faster than light here." We sat on the porch despite the cold, watching snow fall on the James River. Marina had her own story, divorced 5 years back, raised 2 kids alone while climbing the corporate ladder. "You know what I always liked about you, Henry," she said after her second beer. "You never tried to be anything but yourself. Didn't work out so well with Evelyn. Evelyn wanted you to be someone else. That's different." We talked until midnight about work, kids, the strange turns life takes. When she left, she kissed my cheek, a promise of maybe something more when I was ready. I wasn't ready yet, but for the first time, I could imagine being ready someday. The next weeks brought a parade of financial advisors, lawyers, and investment managers, all eager to help manage my newfound wealth. I hired the one who didn't talk down to me, a woman named Patricia who'd grown up in a trailer park and understood that money didn't equal intelligence. "We'll start conservative," she said. "Protect the principal, live off interest. $3 billion properly invested throws off about $150 million a year. That's obscene. That's math. Question is what you do with it." What I did was start fixing things, quietly, anonymously at first. The youth center that was about to close got a donation. The free clinic Mom volunteered at suddenly had funding for new equipment. Skylar and Genesis's college funds swelled to cover any dream they might have. But some things money couldn't fix. Genesis had started having nightmares about the day she'd caught Evelyn and Parker with the money. She'd wake up screaming that someone was chasing her. I found a therapist, Dr. Susan Carr, who specialized in family trauma. She blames herself, Dr. Carr told me after Genesis's 3rd session. Thinks if she hadn't discovered them, none of this would have happened. That's ridiculous. Trauma isn't logical, Mr. Thompson. Neither is healing. So we all went to therapy. Individual, family, even Dad joined a support group for heart attack survivors. We talked about betrayal, trust, and the complicated grief of losing someone who was still alive. February brought Valentine's Day, a holiday I'd planned to ignore, but Genesis had other ideas. "We're having an anti-Valentine's party," she announced, "celebrating loving ourselves instead of waiting for someone else to." So we did. Mom, Dad, the girls, even Xavier and his family came. We ate too much chocolate, watched action movies instead of romances, and nobody mentioned Evelyn once. Later, as I cleaned up, I found a card Genesis had made but hadn't given me. Inside, her careful handwriting, "Dad, Mom tried to break us, but we're like the ships you build strong enough to weather any storm. Thank you for being our anchor. Love, Genesis." I kept that card in my wallet, next to pictures of the girls, a reminder that some things were worth more than $3 billion. March brought the anniversary of Dad's heart attack. We marked it quietly, just family dinner and gratitude that he was still here. He'd lost weight, gained energy, and started volunteering at the Shipyard Museum, telling tourists about the carriers he'd helped design. Almost dying clarified things, he told me one evening. Showed me what mattered. Family, truth, time. Everything else is just noise. Even $3 billion? Especially $3 billion, though the heart clinic you're building is a nice way to spend it. The Leo Williams Heart Clinic was scheduled to break ground in May. Free cardiac care for shipyard workers and families. Dad had cried when I told him the name. April brought unexpected news. Parker had been attacked in prison, apparently over unpaid debts that had followed him inside. He survived, but would spend months recovering. I felt nothing not satisfaction, not pity. He'd become a stranger who'd once destroyed my life. Evelyn, according to her lawyer who'd contacted me about divorce paperwork, had found religion. She was leading Bible study, counseling other inmates, claiming redemption. I signed the papers without comment. Whether her transformation was real or another con wasn't my problem anymore. Spring arrived with unusual warmth, melting the last snow and bringing boats back to the James River. I stood at the shipyard one evening watching the sun set over a submarine I'd helped build when Marina appeared beside me. "Beautiful view," she said. "Yeah, I meant you, Thompson. You look peaceful. First time since I've known you. Getting there. Good, because I'd like to take you to dinner. Somewhere nice. And before you say you're not ready, this isn't a rebound thing. I've been interested for years. Just had the decency to wait until you were single." I looked at her, really looked. Strong features, laugh lines, eyes that had seen their own struggles and survived. Okay. Okay? Dinner. Somewhere nice. But I'm paying. "You billionaires," she laughed. "Always flashing your money around?" It felt good to laugh, to imagine a future that wasn't defined by Evelyn's betrayal. That night, I called both girls to tell them about Marina. "Finally," Skylar said. "She's been perfect for you forever." "Just take it slow," Genesis advised, older than her 15 years. "Make sure she likes you for you." "I will, baby." "And Dad? I'm happy for you. We both are. You deserve good things." After we hung up, I sat in my quiet house, not empty anymore, just quiet, and thought about the journey from that first suspicious text message to here. The pain had been real. The betrayal had been devastating, but we'd survived. More than survived, we'd grown stronger. Chapter 12. Spring 2023 arrived with the kind of Virginia morning that made you forget the hurricanes and humidity were coming. I stood at the edge of Dry Dock 12, watching the USS Enterprise prepare for her maiden voyage. 3 years since Evelyn's arrest. 3 years of rebuilding, recovering, becoming whole again. "Grandpa, look!" a voice called out behind me. I turned to find Leo, not my father, but Genesis's son, barely 2 years old and already obsessed with ships. Genesis had married young, at 20, to a good man named David she'd met in art therapy. Some said it was too soon after trauma, but I saw how he steadied her, how she bloomed under his quiet love. "Big boat," little Leo said, pointing at the carrier. "Very big boat," I agreed, lifting him onto my shoulders. "Grandpa helped build that." "You build boats?" "I build dreams that float," I said, something my own grandfather used to say. The crowd was gathering for the ceremony. Skylar stood with the other doctors from the Leo Williams Heart Clinic, now in its 2nd year of operation. She'd fast-tracked through medical school, driven by purpose I wished had come from something other than trauma. But we don't get to choose our catalysts, only our responses. Marina found us in the crowd, slipping her hand into mine with comfortable familiarity. We'd married quietly last year, just family at a beach ceremony. She'd never asked for access to the money, signed a prenup without reading it, and still split dinner checks when I forgot my wallet. the opposite of Evelyn in every way that mattered. "The news crews are here," she warned. "They'll want statements." Let them want. The story had never really died. Every few months, some reporter would dredge it up, the billionaire welder who caught his wife plotting murder. But we'd learned to live with background noise. "Ladies and gentlemen," the Admiral began the ceremony, "we gather to launch the USS Enterprise, built by American hands, American steel, and American determination. I thought about all the hands that had touched this ship, thousands of welders, electricians, pipe fitters. Each weld I'd laid was there somewhere, invisible but essential, holding her together. 'Henry!' a voice called. I turned to find Robert Kim, a young welder I'd been mentoring. He'd been the first recipient of the Thompson Foundation scholarship, now back from engineering school and working design. 'Robert, how's the new position?' 'Amazing. I'm designing the next generation of carriers because of you. Because of yourself. I just opened a door. Still.' He paused. 'I heard about your ex-wife.' The news had come last week. Evelyn had been diagnosed with breast cancer, stage 3. The prison had contacted me as next of kin, though we'd been divorced for 2 years. 'Yeah. You going to see her?' 'The girls are deciding. It's their choice.' Skylar had immediately said no. Genesis was wavering, that inherited compassion warring with justified anger. I'd support whatever they chose. The Enterprise began moving, massive and graceful, sliding toward the James River. The crowd cheered. Little Leo clapped his chubby hands. Marina squeezed my fingers. "Mr. Thompson," a reporter had found me. "Any thoughts on this moment?" "Pride," I said simply. "Pride in American workers, pride in what we build, pride in surviving storms and sailing on." She wanted more, but I was done performing for cameras. That evening, we had the whole family for dinner at the house, completely renovated now, though I'd kept Grandpa Joe's desk exactly as it was. Mom and Dad were there, both healthy and happy. Xavier and his family, Marina's kids from her first marriage, Skylar with her new boyfriend, a pediatric surgeon who treated her like gold, Genesis, David, and little Leo. "A toast," Dad said, raising his glass, "to Henry, who showed us that real wealth isn't what you have, but what you survive with your soul intact. To family," Mom added. "To second chances," Marina said, kissing my cheek. "To building things that last," I finished. Later, after everyone had gone home, I found Genesis on the porch watching the stars. "I'm going to see her," she said without preamble. "Okay, not for her, for me, to say goodbye properly." "Want me to come?" "No. This is something I need to do alone." I hugged my daughter, my brave, artistic, compassionate daughter, who'd inherited the best of both her parents and chose to nurture only the good. "I'm proud of you. I learned from you, Dad, how to forgive without forgetting, how to move forward without hate." She left the next morning for the prison, returning that evening with red eyes but squared shoulders. "How was it?" "She's smaller, grayer, scared." Genesis paused. "She asked about you." "Oh, wanted to know if you were happy. I told her yes," she said. "She said she was glad, that maybe the one good thing she did was setting you free to find real love. Even now, it's about her narrative. Maybe, or maybe prison and cancer teach you things." Genesis pulled out an envelope. "She gave me this, for you. I took it but didn't open it. Some words didn't need to be read. You okay, baby?" "I will be. It's just, she's my mother. Even after everything, she's my mother. And that's okay. Love doesn't have to make sense." A week later, news came that Evelyn had weeks, maybe a month. The cancer had spread faster than expected. She'd signed DNR papers, refusing treatment that would only extend suffering. Skylar finally went to see her, once, briefly. Came back saying nothing except, "It's finished." I never went. Marina asked if I regretted it. No. We said everything that needed saying 3 years ago. This is just epilogue. Evelyn died on a Tuesday morning in May, quietly, with the prison chaplain holding her hand. We had her cremated, scattered the ashes at sea from the deck of a carrier, not one I'd worked on. Even in death, I couldn't give her that. The Enterprise was commissioned that summer. I stood on her deck in my dress blues. They'd made me an honorary chief for my service watching jets land and take off. Each landing rattled my bones, reminded me I was alive. "You did good, Henry," Marina said, standing beside me in her own uniform. "We all did." "No, you specifically. You could have let hate consume you. Could have used your money for revenge. Instead, you built things. The clinic, the foundation, this family. Grandpa Joe always said money was a test. You passed. We all did." As the sun set over the Atlantic, painting the sky in shades of purpose and peace, I thought about the journey. From that first suspicion to this moment of absolute clarity. Evelyn had been right about one thing I had been hiding. Not just money, but myself. Afraid to be fully seen, fully known. Not anymore. "I love you," I told Marina, meaning it with a depth I hadn't thought possible after betrayal. "I know," she said, grinning. "You tell me every day. And I'll keep telling you." "Good. Because I love you too, Henry Thompson. All of you. The welder, the billionaire, the father, the survivor." Little Leo ran over, dragging Skylar and Genesis with him. "Grandpa! Airplanes!" I lifted him up, this boy named for my father who'd survived a murder attempt, who'd lived to see justice and healing both. The girls pressed close, my anchors in every storm. "Yeah, buddy, airplanes. Maybe someday you'll build them." "Or fly them," Skylar suggested. "Or paint them," Genesis added. "Or all three," Marina laughed. "All three. Why not?" We'd learned that life could surprise you with its cruelty, but also with its capacity for renewal. Every ending was also a beginning. Every betrayal could teach trust. Every loss could lead to unexpected gain. The Enterprise headed out to sea, carrying my welds and my wishes for safe passage. I stood with my family, real family, chosen and cherished, watching her disappear into the horizon where sky met water. Somewhere in a prison cemetery, Evelyn lay in an unmarked grave. I'd paid for a headstone but hadn't chosen words. What do you write for someone who was both your greatest love and deepest betrayal? In the end, Genesis chose mother, human, flawed, forgiven. Not forgotten, never forgotten. But forgiven, because holding on to hate was just another kind of prison, and we'd all served enough time. "Ready to head home?" Marina asked. Home. A word that meant something different now. Not a place, but a feeling, carried in the hearts of people who'd weathered the worst storm and sailed out the other side. "Yeah," I said, Leo on my shoulders, Marina's hand in mine, my daughters flanking us like guards. "Let's go home." As we walked away from the ocean toward the parking lot where normal life waited, I caught my reflection in a window. Gray-haired now, lined face, hands scarred from decades of welding, but eyes clear and conscience clean. Henry Thompson, welder, father, billionaire, survivor. All of it true, all of it me. The sun set on the Atlantic, but for us it was just dawn. A new day, hard-earned and gratefully received. We'd built something that would last longer than any ship a family forged in truth, tested by fire, and strong enough to weather any storm. That was worth more than all the money in the world. That was everything. What strikes me most about Henry's story isn't the billions he hid, or even the betrayal. It's how he chose building over destroying, even when revenge would have been so easy. The fact that he still works as a welder after everything, creating a heart clinic from his father's near death, shows that real wealth isn't about money, but about the legacy we forge from our deepest wounds. Makes you wonder, in his position, would we have had the strength to transform poison into medicine?